Rascal and the Hollow Tree, by C.W. Rowan. Sit back and get comfortable. This is going to be an epic journey. Chapter 1. The Almost Working Wonder. Dawn crept through Whimsy Wood like it was running late for an appointment. Light seeped up from the forest floor, turning everything gold and pink, while Rascal's whiskers twitched in his sleep like his brain was debugging something even in dreamland. His treehouse was basically organized chaos with anxiety. Gears sorted by size filled acorn caps on one shelf because apparently he had trust issues with leaving anything unsorted. Springs coiled in neat rows like metal snakes that had given up on life. Tiny screws that needed tweezers to handle sat in their own special box, labelled in his careful handwriting because of course they were labelled. This is what happens when you're a perfectionist with abandonment issues living in a tree. Sketches on birch bark covered every wall, mechanical dreams that almost made sense if you squinted hard enough and maybe tilted your head a little. The whole place looked like if Pinterest had a baby with a hardware store and raised it on too much caffeine. The whole place smelled like dried herbs, lavender for sleep, mint for thinking, and something called morning's memory that Grandmother Possum swore would help with focus. The scent wrapped around him like the world's gentlest weighted blanket, the hug he'd never gotten from a real mom, just the warmth of forest creatures who'd chosen to love him anyway. Found family hits different when it's literally how you survived. Rascal stretched, yawned, and shuffled to his workbench where his greatest obsession waited. His masterpiece. His beautiful disaster. The robot was magnificent. Well, magnificent in an almost working but not quite kind of way that perfectly summed up his entire existence. It stood about 1.5 feet tall, cobbled together from whatever Rascal could find, which was basically his whole personality in mechanical form. The torso? Part of an old lantern, polished until it gleamed like he'd spent way too many hours on it, which he definitely had. The arms? Copper wire wound around lightweight metal cores, with joints that clicked like a pocket watch having an existential crisis. The legs had tiny pistons he'd found in the ruins near the edge places, that liminal space where forest met human world and weird stuff just happened. But the head was his masterpiece. He'd made it from a small tin that still smelled faintly sweet, added one blue glass eye that caught light in ways that made his chest tight with something between pride and hope, and etched a simple mouth that somehow managed to look curious or determined, depending on the angle and his mood. It's giving main character energy. Too bad it doesn't actually work. "Good morning, friend," Rascal whispered, because talking to his creations was totally normal behavior and not at all a sign that he spent too much time alone. The robot stood frozen mid-step, 1 foot raised like it was playing the world's longest game of freeze tag. It had been stuck like that for 3 days now, which was honestly longer than most of his projects lasted before he gave up and started over. Don't think about all the failed attempts. Don't think about the drawer full of robot parts that never came together. Focus on this one. He touched the activation lever behind its shoulder, based on a music box mechanism that had actually, played music instead of just sitting there looking pretty. Nothing. Come on, please. Just this once. Then, a shudder ran through the metal frame like it was coming back to life. The blue glass eye flickered like a computer booting up. The raised foot lowered with a soft tink that sounded like the universe's smallest victory bell. Another step. The head turned, scanning the room like it was seeing everything for the first time. The arms rose, reaching toward the morning light like it was greeting the day. "Yes," Rascal breathed, his paws clasped together like he was praying to the gods of mechanical engineering. "That's it, that's—" But the light was already fading from the glass eye. The third step faltered. The fourth became a stumble. The arms drooped, and then nothing. Just an assemblage of scavenged parts again, back to being beautiful and useless. 4 steps. 4 whole steps. That's progress, right? That's something. Rascal sighed, but it was a hopeful sigh mixed with the familiar ache of almost 4 steps today. Yesterday had been 2. Last week the robot hadn't moved at all. He was getting somewhere, even if somewhere was moving at the speed of continental drift. Tomorrow, he promised, adjusting the robot back to its ready position with the careful tenderness of someone who'd never given up on anything in his life. Tomorrow we'll go further. Tomorrow we'll figure it out. Tomorrow it'll work. Tomorrow everything will make sense. A scratching at his door interrupted his internal pep talk. Before he could respond, Hurricane Maple burst in like a natural disaster with ADHD. Rascal! Rascal! His 7-year-old adoptive sister practically vibrated with energy that could probably power a small city. The mushroom circle by the old oak is glowing purple, and Uncle Thistlegruff says it means the star-touched will dance tonight, but I think he's just making that up because yesterday he said purple mushrooms meant rain was coming upside down, and that doesn't even make sense. And also I saw 3 butterflies that were definitely having a conversation and... Whoa! Slow down there, caffeine tornado, Rascal said, intercepting her before she could knock over his carefully organized gear collection. Good morning to you too, Maple. She dodged him with the grace of someone who'd been dodging responsibility her whole life, zeroing in on the robot like a heat-seeking missile of pure curiosity. Did it walk today? Did it? Oh, it looks different. You added something to its chest. Is that why its eye is more blue? Can I touch it? Please, please, please. 4 steps, Rascal said, gently blocking her path with the practiced moves of someone who'd learned to protect his projects from enthusiastic 7-year-olds. And no touching. Remember the music box incident? Maple's ears drooped like a deflating balloon. That was an accident. And I said sorry like 1,000,000 times, and I helped you find new springs even though they were in the scary part of the forest where the shadows have teeth and everything smells like bad decisions. The guilt trip. She's learned the guilt trip. Who taught her the guilt trip? Despite himself, Rascal smiled. She had helped, even though her version of helping mostly involved providing running commentary on every butterfly, weird-shaped stick, and interesting cloud they passed. But she'd stayed with him for hours, chattering away while he searched, and somehow that had made the whole thing feel less like work and more like hanging out. I know you're sorry, and I know you helped, but this is delicate work, okay? Maybe when it's walking properly, like actually walking instead of doing its current impression of a broken wind-up toy, you can be the first one I show. Besides you mean, Maple corrected with the precision of someone who took promises very seriously. Then she studied him with eyes that were way too perceptive for her age, like she could see right through his carefully constructed walls. You know what your problem is? Oh, good. A 7-year-old is about to psychoanalyze me. This should be fun. I have a feeling you're going to tell me, Rascal said. You need to touch grass, but like metaphorically. Maple plopped down cross-legged on his floor, apparently settling in for a serious conversation. You remember fun, right? Pirates of the Misty Creek? You were literally the best captain ever. You made that hat out of birch bark and you did different voices for all the sea monsters. The memory hit him right in the chest like a physical thing. Had it really been so long? He remembered that hat. 3 tries to get the fold right, but when he finally had it, Maple had declared it the most piratey hat in the whole forest, and worn it for a week straight. When did I stop doing stuff like that? When did everything become about fixing and building and trying to make things work? I'm too old for pirates, he said gently, but even as he said it, it felt wrong. You're not too old, you're too busy, Maple shot back without missing a beat. Too busy with gears and springs and things that almost work instead of actually living. It's like you're trying to build yourself into someone different. Ouch, direct hit. How is she so good at this? She moved closer, her chaotic energy stilling for once. I miss my brother, not the one who fixes things, though he's pretty cool too, but the one who used to make up voices for all the stick puppets and pretend the creek was an ocean full of adventure. When did she get so wise? When did I get so disconnected? Rascal really looked at her for the first time in months. When had she gotten taller? When had her fur lost that kitten fuzz? She was growing up, and he was missing it, buried in his workshop while life happened around him like background noise he'd learned to tune out. I'm turning into one of those people who's so focused on the future that they miss the present. That's depressing. Tell you what, he said, surprising himself. Let me finish up here, and I'll meet you by the stream. We can't play pirates, I've got too much work to do, but maybe you can help me look for special pieces? You've got good eyes for finding things. Maple's face lit up like someone had plugged her into a happiness generator. Really? You mean it? Oh, I'll find the best pieces. Pieces so special your robot will probably start dancing and maybe even singing. She bounced toward the door like gravity was just a suggestion, then paused. And Rascal? Maybe sometimes things work better when they're played with instead of just worked on. Maybe your robot isn't broken. Maybe it's just lonely. Before he could process that surprisingly deep observation from someone who still believed vegetables were a conspiracy, she was gone, leaving him standing in sudden quiet. Lonely. Could a creation of gears and springs feel the absence of companionship? Rascal stood there, looking from his silent robot to the door, feeling like he'd been called out by the universe's smallest therapist. "Are you lonely?" he asked the robot softly. Its etched mouth seemed sadder in the morning light, like it was waiting for something he wasn't giving it. "I'm talking to a robot about feelings. This is where my life is at." Shaking off the thought, because feelings were complicated and gears were straightforward, Rascal finished his morning tea and prepared for his daily forage. First stop, the stream, where Mother Otter waited with her usual patient smile and daily dose of unsolicited life advice. "Ah, young builder," she called as he approached. "Come, let these old paws check if you're washing properly." It was their daily routine, comforting in its predictability. Rascal would demonstrate his washing technique, and Mother Otter would find something to correct. Mist behind your left ear, or your whiskers need a leftward stroke today, like personal hygiene was both an art form and a spiritual practice. Today she surprised him. "Perfect. You've learned all I can teach about the outside. Perhaps it's time you learned about washing the inside too." "Great." More cryptic advice. "Why can't anyone in this forest just say what they mean?" "The inside?" he asked, though he suspected he didn't really want to know. Her dark eyes held depths that suggested she'd seen more than she usually let on. "The heart, young builder. It needs cleaning too, or all the gears in the world won't help what you're trying to build." Before he could ask what she meant, because apparently clear communication was against forest law, she dove, leaving only ripples and riddles that would probably keep him awake tonight. Why is everyone suddenly an expert on my emotional state? Next up, Uncle Thistlegruff's den. The old badger sat outside with fur sticking up like he'd been struck by lightning or had an idea. With Thistlegruff, those were basically the same thing. "Rascal, my boy." He boomed with the enthusiasm of someone who'd definitely been up all night thinking too hard about something. "Just in time. I've had a revelation about mechanical animation." Oh no, not another revelation. Last time he had a revelation, I spent 3 days looking for dream crystals that don't exist. Despite his hurry, Rascal paused. Thistlegruff's revelations were usually pure nonsense, but occasionally, very occasionally, he stumbled onto something useful buried in all the chaos. "You see," Thistlegruff continued, waving his paws like he was conducting an invisible orchestra, "the problem with your mechanical friend is that you're trying to make it walk before you've taught it to dream. Everything that moves must first dream of movement. Birds dream of flying before they hatch. Trees dream of growing before they sprout. Your creation needs dream seeds." Dream seeds. Right, because that's definitely a thing that exists. "Dream seeds," Rascal repeated diplomatically, using his special voice for humouring relatives who meant well but lived in their own reality. "Precisely. Plant them in its headspace. Water them with moonlight and good intentions. In 3 days, or possibly never, movement will bloom like flowers made of purpose." I can't tell if this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, or if there's actually something buried in there. "I'll consider that," Rascal said, edging away before Thistlegruff could elaborate on the proper care and feeding of imaginary seeds. "Thank you, Uncle." "Remember," Thistlegruff called after him, pointing with the intensity of someone delivering prophecy. "The answer to every mechanical problem is biological, or possibly the opposite, but definitely one of those. The fact that this almost makes sense is probably a sign I need more sleep." The edge places beckoned with their usual promise of treasures and possible tetanus. This borderland between forest and human world was Rascal's gold mine, the place where 2 worlds met and left their discarded dreams scattered like breadcrumbs. Old campsites gave up their mysteries like time capsules. A broken compass that pointed to something interesting, just not north. Tiny binoculars with one cracked lens that made the world look magical. Springs and gears from devices whose original purpose was lost to time and carelessness. One person's trash is my treasure, literally. My entire personality is built on repurposing abandoned things. Today's haul was promising. A solar panel no bigger than a leaf that still held charge like a piece of captured sunlight. Tiny mirrors that nested inside each other like Russian dolls made of reflection. And best of all, a miniature motor that hummed with possibility when he touched it. Like it was just waiting for the right project to bring it back to life. This motor feels different, like it wants to work instead of just existing. By the time he reached home, his pouch was heavy with treasures and his mind was buzzing with possibilities. Maple waited by his door, practically vibrating with contained energy. "You're late," she announced with the authority of someone who'd been keeping track. "I've been here for ages. Well, since I finished helping Grandmother Possum sort herbs. Did you know she has 47 different kinds? I counted. Twice. Some of them smell like old socks, but in a good way." "How do old socks smell good?" I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to encourage this line of thinking. Despite her chatter, Maple proved surprisingly helpful sorting the day's finds. Her paws were quick and clever, and she had an instinct for what might fit together that he honestly envied. When she held the motor up to the solar panel, both hummed in harmony like they were recognizing each other. "They like each other," she said with the simple certainty of someone who believed in the emotional lives of inanimate objects. "You can tell, like when two fireflies sync up or when puzzle pieces know they belong together." Rascal looked at her, then at the pieces, then at his robot standing patiently in its eternal pose. Maybe Thistlegruff's nonsense about dream seeds wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe Maple's observation about loneliness held some truth. Maybe what his creation needed wasn't just better mechanics, but something more. Connection, companionship, the spark that came from being seen and known and cared about. Maybe I've been approaching this all wrong. Maybe it's not about perfect engineering. Maybe it's about... love? Did I just think that unironically? I need help. "Want to help me try something?" he asked, surprising himself with the offer. Maple's eyes went huge like he'd just offered to let her drive the moon. "With the robot? Really? Really? But you have to be careful." "I'll be so careful. Careful as Grandmother Possum with her special teacups that she only uses when the mayor visits." Together they installed the new motor in the robot's chest cavity, the solar panel positioned to catch the afternoon light streaming through his window. As they worked, Maple kept up a steady stream of conversation, but she directed it at the robot itself instead of just filling the air with noise. She's talking to it like it's already alive, like it just needs to remember how to be awake. "You're going to love walking," she told it with absolute conviction. "There's so much to see. Like where the creek makes a waterfall that sounds like laughter, and the hollow log that echoes everything but makes it sound fancy, like you're important, and the butterfly meadow where they all take off at once, and it's like the flowers decided to fly." Rascal found himself adding his own promises, caught up in Maple's certainty. "I'll take you to see the spelling stones, where the letters glow at sunset, and the grove where moonlight collects in pools like liquid starlight. And maybe we'll figure out what that broken compass actually points to." I'm making promises to a robot. This is either really sweet or really concerning. When the installation was complete, they stood back. The robot looked the same, but something in the air felt different, expectant, like the moment before lightning strikes, when the whole world holds its breath. "Should we try?" Maple whispered, like they were about to wake something sacred. Rascal reached for the activation lever, then paused. On impulse, and maybe because Maple's confidence was contagious, he took her paw and placed it over his own. Together. If this works, she's part of it. If it doesn't, well, at least we'll fail together. They pressed the lever. The robot shuddered like it was stretching after a long sleep. Its eye flickered bright blue, then steady, brighter than it had ever been. One foot up, then down with purpose. The other foot up and down. Another step, smoother than before, another. Its head turned toward them, and something in the way the light caught its features made Rascal's heart do something complicated. The robot wasn't just moving, it was looking at them, like it knew they were there, like it was grateful. Bro, it's working. It's actually working. 8 steps, 10, 12. It walked in a small circle on the workbench, arms swinging with something approaching grace, like it was learning rhythm in real time. Then, as always, the light faded. The steps slowed. The robot returned to stillness. But Maple was cheering, hugging Rascal so tight he couldn't breathe and honestly didn't want to. 12 steps! That's the furthest ever! And did you see how it looked at us? It knew we were here! It was saying thank you. She's right. It was different this time. It wasn't just mechanical movement. It was intentional. Rascal hugged her back, feeling something ease in his chest that he hadn't even realized was tight. We did it, he said, and the word we felt important. Together. Tomorrow it'll walk even further, Maple declared with the absolute certainty of someone who'd never doubted magic was real, and someday it'll wall the way to the butterfly meadow with us. You'll see. It's going to be amazing. Maybe she's right. Maybe tomorrow really will be different. As afternoon shadows lengthened and the light turned golden, Rascal felt contentment he hadn't experienced in months. The robot stood in its patient stance, somehow looking less lonely, like it had friends now. His new treasures waited to be examined. Tomorrow held infinite possibility instead of just another attempt at the same problem. "Thank you," he told Maple as she prepared to leave, bouncing toward the door like gravity was still optional. "For helping. For reminding me that some things are better when they're shared." She grinned, and for a moment he could see exactly who she was going to become, someone who brought light wherever she went. That's what sisters are for, even the not-blood kind. She paused at the door, suddenly serious. "And Rascal, I think your robot isn't just learning to walk. I think it's learning to hope, just like you. Learning to hope. When did I stop hoping? When did everything become about trying and failing, instead of believing something might actually work?" After she left, Rascal stood in his workshop, surrounded by salvaged wonders and half-built dreams that suddenly felt less like failures and more like practice. He thought about Mother Otter's words about washing the inside, about Thistlegruff's dream seeds that maybe weren't so ridiculous after all, about Maple's observation that things worked better when they were played with instead of just worked on. Maybe the problem isn't my engineering. Maybe it's my expectations. Maybe I've been so afraid of failing that I forgot how to succeed. The robot waited, patient as always. But now Rascal saw it differently, not as a project to complete, but as a companion in the process of becoming. They were both reaching towards something neither fully understood, but maybe that was okay. Maybe the reaching was the point. We're both learning how to be alive. That's kind of beautiful. He brewed evening tea and sat in his doorway watching the sun paint the forest gold. Somewhere out there lay answers to questions he was only beginning to ask. But for now, this was enough. A workshop full of possibilities, a robot that walked a little further each day, a sister who reminded him that joy was a choice, and a forest family that loved him even when he disappeared into his own head for days at a time. This is good. This is really good. The last light caught the robot's blue eye, making it shine like a captured star. 12 steps today. Tomorrow perhaps 13, or 20. Or maybe it would dance, as Maple predicted, with the confidence of someone who'd never met a dream she didn't believe in. Tomorrow it might even make it to the butterfly meadow. And maybe I'll be brave enough to go with it. Anything was possible in Whimsy Wood, where the border between mechanical and magical was as fluid as morning mist and twice as mysterious. And Rascal, young builder of impossible things, was exactly where he needed to be, even if he didn't yet know who he truly was or why his paws seemed made for bridging worlds. I don't know what I am yet, but I'm starting to think that's okay. Maybe becoming is better than being. Tomorrow would bring new searches, new attempts, new small victories. And someday, he felt it with absolute certainty that surprised him, someday his creation would walk not just across a workbench, but out into the wide world, carrying a piece of his heart with every step. But that was tomorrow's adventure. Tonight there was tea to finish, plans to sketch, and the comfortable ritual of oiling tiny joints and tightening microscopic screws while thinking about butterflies and hope, and the way some things only worked when you stopped trying so hard. Tonight is for planning. Tomorrow is for magic. The stars emerged, one by one above Whimsy Wood, each a distant light calling to something in Rascal's chest he couldn't yet name but was finally ready to discover. Whatever that calling is, I'm listening now. But he would find it. Tomorrow. Chapter 2, The Valley of Thorns. Rascal's mornings were basically on autopilot. Wake up, drink tea, grab his gear, quick head kiss from his otter mom at the stream, awkward forest wisdom from his badger uncle. Then boom. Off he'd go, scavenging for parts like a furry little engineer on a mission. Normally he'd hit the usual junk trails, but today something felt off, different. Instead of heading to his usual spots, he turned toward the ridge, where his uncle lived. The old badger was already out front, digging through a pile of roots and muttering to himself. His fur looked like he'd been electrocuted again. The guy legit believed brushing your fur messed with moonlight energy. "You're early," the badger grunted, not even looking up. "You're always weird," Rascal shot back, already poking through nearby scrap just in case. The badger smirked. "Got a story for you, one I've never told." That made Rascal stop. He'd heard all the classics. Singing plants, talking clouds, time-bending mushrooms, total forest nonsense. But there was something in the old badger's eyes, a spark. He stayed. "A fireball fell from the sky once," the badger began. "Lit up the whole forest, no sound, just heat. Landed past the Valley of Thorns, burned for days. Even the wind couldn't touch it." Rascal blinked. "How does fire stop wind?" The badger's tone dropped. "It wasn't fire from here." Something in Rascal's chest jumped. "Where exactly?" "Half a day's hike," the badger said. "But not safe. The thorns there, they've got a mind of their own." Rascal didn't answer. He just nodded and walked off. "Bring gloves," the badger called after him. "The thorns don't forget." By late morning, Rascal had packed water, some dried plummeries, and a whole lot of curiosity. The Valley of Thorns wasn't on any map. It was the kind of place animals whispered about, a dead zone between hills, no sun, no trees, no sound, just miles of twisted vines and thorns the size of claws. He stopped at the edge. It looked like the forest had straight up given up. He adjusted his satchel. "One step at a time," he muttered. At first, the thorns just brushed his fur, light, almost polite. "Like, you sure about this?" But 10 steps in, it changed. The vines got weird, like they knew he was there. The air thickened, the path narrowed to paw width. One thorn sliced his shoulder, another caught his tail. Then, snap, a vine yanked his ankle and sent him face first into the dirt. He scrambled up. The vines didn't move much, but it felt like they were watching. He gritted his teeth. Nope, not today. From his pouch, he pulled out a sliver of shiny mirror metal. The thorns recoiled. Just a twitch. But enough. He shoved it forward like a shield, scraped, crawled, swore. A lot. After what felt like forever, the vine started to back off. A narrow gap opened. He stumbled through and froze. The clearing wasn't like anything he'd seen. Bright sun cut through gaps in the canopy, spotlighting the wreckage below. Everywhere, metal shapes, but not like tools. Curved, smooth, shiny in weird ways. Panels the size of trees. Wires coiled like jungle vines. Glass shards glinting with colours leaves never had. He wandered slowly, paw brushing the edge of something that felt like it used to glow. Whatever this was, it wasn't from the forest or anywhere nearby. Then he saw it. Half buried in melted vines, a small box, about the size of a walnut, glowing faint yellow like honey under moonlight. Tiny wires dangled like jellyfish tendrils, and even though it made no sound, Rascal felt it, deep in his bones. He reached out. The moment his paw touched it, buzz. Not from the box, from him. A sharp zap at the back of his neck. He slapped it. Ah, bug bite? Weird, there'd always been a little bump there. Never did anything. Until now. It buzzed again. Faint, but like it was noticing something. He scratched it one more time, then turned back to the box. It pulsed, in sync with his breath. "This," he whispered. "This is it." The way back, easier. The thorns still reached, but not as aggressively. Like the box was keeping them in check, he didn't stop until he got home. Didn't eat, didn't rest. He dropped the box onto his workbench and got to work. Sketched, measured, licked it once for voltage. Zap! Yup, still alive. Then he cracked open the robot's core. Built a harness, rerouted the wires, locked the box in place. Final connection, buzz, back of his neck, hotter this time. He slapped at it, growling, "Not now, I'm busy." And then the robot moved. Eye lit, body twitched, and it stood up, for real. It turned its head and looked right at him. Rascal froze. "You're real." The robot blinked, let out a tiny chirp, soft, curious. Rascal sat down slowly, heart pounding. He watched as it took a few clunky steps in a circle, still buzzing in his neck, still that bump. But whatever, that could wait, because right now, there was a robot walking on his workbench, and it was alive. Chapter 3. Rewrite, The Girl at the Door. G version. Rascal was mid-tweak on a spring-loaded harness, leaf stick and way too much stubbornness when he heard it. Footsteps. Up the tree, heading toward his den. He froze. Nobody came to his den, ever. It wasn't like he didn't know anyone. He just didn't invite people here. This was his zone. Gears, wires, peace. Visitors meant questions. Questions meant talking. Talking meant explaining things he didn't even understand himself. But this sound wasn't clumsy like the badger cubs, or slow and heavy like his uncle. It was light, confident, almost playful. Then the curtain moved, and there she was, Luna. She stood in the doorway like she owned the sunlight, her red fur glowing in the morning light, white chest fluff a little wind-blown, and her eyes sparkling like she already knew she was about to shake his whole world. "Hey," she said, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "I was nearby and thought I'd finally check out your place." Rascal's brain straight up blue-screened. She had never been here. He'd seen her around. Sure. At the stream. Passing through the glade. Once she gave him a piece of honeyroot pie at the summer gathering and he dropped it because his paws forgot how to function. Now she was in his doorway. "In my den," he blurted. Luna grinned. "Unless you've moved, yeah?" And then, before he could say anything, she stepped inside. Her eyes widened, slowly taking in the shelves built into the walls, bundles of herbs, piles of parts, bits of metal, half-built projects everywhere. "This place is awesome," she whispered. "It's like a forest inventor's hideout." Rascal suddenly saw everything differently. That tangled wire pile, a mess. The music box that chirped in the wind. Embarrassing. His whole bench, utter chaos. "It's kind of messy," he mumbled. "It's kind of amazing," she corrected. "It's like a brain made a nest." That actually didn't sound bad. She wandered over to the bench, eyeing his scribbled diagrams. "You make all this stuff?" "Sort of," he said, nervously tapping a tool he didn't need to touch. "I just tinker." "Tinker," she repeated, like she was trying it on. "So you invent stuff?" He shrugged. "They mostly don't work." "Even cooler," she said, eyes shining. That was not the usual response. She started pointing things out. A spinning disc with feathers, a backward water wheel, a compass that pointed towards sadness, a flower that opened to reveal a creepy fake bug. She didn't laugh at any of it. She was into it. Then her eyes landed on the robot. It was standing quietly in the corner, part statue, part maybe alive. "What's this?" Rascal tensed. "Nothing. It's private." She looked at him, picked up on the vibe and nodded. "Okay." But she didn't look away. After a beat, he sighed. "It's a friend, or it will be." Still no laughter, no judgment, just curiosity. She crouched beside it, eyes following the delicate wiring, the careful joints, the shimmer of crystal threads. She reached out but didn't touch. "What does it do?" "It walks," he said. "Sometimes, not for long, still figuring it out." "You made something that walks." "I'm trying to," he said quickly. "It kinda powers up, walks a few steps, then just shuts off." She stood up and looked right at him. "That's incredible." He shrugged. "Maybe." "No, not maybe. That's the coolest thing I've seen in the entire forest." He looked at her, really looked, and for a second he forgot how to breathe. "I think," she said softly, "you're kind of brilliant." His ears burned. His tail thumped the floor like it was panicking. "Thanks," he managed. They stood there in silence for a moment until Luna looked around again. "So this is where you disappear to all the time," she said, pretending to scowl. He smiled. "Yeah, usually. There's always something to fix. Or something to avoid," she teased. He started to argue, then stopped. "Maybe." "I get it," she said. "The forest can be loud. I like the quiet too." She stepped to the door and turned back. "I'm glad I came." Rascal swallowed. "Me too." She pointed at the robot. "Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Secret's safe." Something warm curled up inside him. Something like trust. "Okay," she grinned. See you soon, inventor. And then she was gone. Rascal stood in the stillness, paws buzzing, robot watching silently. He looked at it. She didn't think you were weird. The robot said nothing, but it felt like it agreed. He sat back at the workbench, picked up a pencil, stared at a new sketch. Then, in the corner of the page, he drew a little star, and underneath he wrote, "Luna came today." Audiobook narration. The girl at the door performed style. Rascal was mid-tweak on a spring-loaded harness, leaf, stick, and way too much stubbornness. When he heard it, footsteps, climbing up the tree, toward his den, he froze. Nobody came here ever. It wasn't that he didn't like people, he just didn't bring them here. This was his space, his zone. Wires, gears, peace, no explanations. But this sound? Light, confident, almost smiling. Then the curtain moved, and there she was, Luna. She stood like the sun had followed her up the tree, red fur glowing, eyes sparkling like she already knew she was about to flip his whole life upside down. "Hey," she said, casual as anything. "I was nearby and thought I'd finally check out your place." Rascal's brain short-circuited. She had never been here, not once. "In my den," he blurted. Luna grinned. "Unless you've moved, yeah." Before he could even blink, she was inside. Her eyes scanned the shelves, the bundles, the projects, the mess, taking it all in. "This place is awesome," she whispered. "It's like a forest inventor's hideout." Suddenly, Rascal saw it the way she might. Wire pile? Disaster. Chirping music box? Embarrassing. Workbench? Chaos. "It's kind of messy," he muttered. "It's kind of amazing," she said, like a brain made a nest. He blinked. That didn't sound so bad. She wandered to the bench. "You make all this?" "Sort of. I tinker." "Tinker," she repeated. "So, you invent stuff?" He shrugged. "Mostly stuff that doesn't work." She beamed, even cooler. "Okay, what?" She went around the room, pointing out the weirdest things and loving every one of them. Then she spotted the robot, standing still, quiet, like it was waiting. "What's this?" Rascal tensed. "Private." She nodded, didn't push. He hesitated. Then, "It's a friend, or it will be." Still no teasing, no judgment. "What does it do?" "It walks, kinda. Not for long." "Slut, you made something that walks." "I'm trying to." She stood up, looking him dead in the eyes. "That's incredible." He looked away. "Maybe?" "No, not maybe. That's the coolest thing I've seen in the entire forest." His ears were on fire. His tail? Panic drumming. "I think," she said gently, "you're kind of brilliant." He swallowed. "Thanks." She looked around once more. "So this is where you hide out?" "Yeah, usually." "Fixing stuff?" she asked. "Or avoiding stuff?" she added. He opened his mouth to argue, stopped. "Maybe," she smiled. "I get it." She stepped to the door. "I'm glad I came." "Me too," she pointed to the robot. "I won't tell. Secret's safe." Something warm flickered in his chest. "Okay," she grinned. "See you soon, inventor." And just like that, she was gone. Rascal stood there, feeling like the air had changed. He looked at the robot. "She didn't think you were weird." The robot didn't answer, but somehow he felt like it agreed. He sat at the bench, picked up a pencil, looked at his diagram. Then, in the corner, he drew a star, and underneath it wrote, "Luna came today." Chapter 4, The One More Piece. The meadow was still fogged over when Rascal stepped outside. Mist clung to the grass like the morning hadn't finished waking up. His wooden door clicked shut behind him, and his pouch hung at his side. Empty, but not for long. He had a mission. The power cell he found had changed everything. His robot had moved, really moved, but it still shut down after a few steps. Something was missing. He didn't know what, but he could feel it. There was one more piece out there. He was sure of it, and he knew where to look. He turned toward the Valley of Thorns. Then, "Good morning, little inventor." He flinched. Luna. She was standing in the grass just ahead, fur damp with dew and a clover tucked behind one ear. Same smile, same energy. Rascal tried to act chill. "Oh, hey." He didn't stop walking. She jogged to catch up. "You totally saw me and pretended not to. Bold move." "I didn't," he sighed. "I was focused." "On what?" "Just going back to that place with the wreckage." Luna's eyes lit up. "The one you told me about yesterday?" He nodded. "Can I come?" He hesitated. "It's a long hike," he said. "I like long hikes. It's through thorn territory. I've had worse. You'll slow me down. I'll keep up." He gave her a side eye. She wasn't joking. "Fine," he said, "but don't touch anything unless I say." Luna mock saluted. "Yes, sir, Captain Tinker." They walked. The trail narrowed, trees leaned in, light dimmed. "So," Rascal muttered, "do you always just drop in on people?" "Only when they're building robots in secret dens." He rolled his eyes. It's not that interesting. You're wrong. It's just wires and gears. Exactly. Magic. He almost smiled. As they hiked, Rascal opened up more than he expected. Told her about the crash site. Not calling it that, but close. Just a place past the thorns. Old metal. Strange energy. Quiet, but full of memory. It feels like it wanted to do something, he said, but didn't finish. Luna didn't laugh. She just nodded. Sounds like it needed you. They reached the edge of the valley. Rascal stopped. The wall of thorns looked worse than he remembered, like it had grown overnight, twisted, sharp, alive. This is where it gets rough, he warned. Luna stepped up beside him. Let's go. They pushed through. The thorns weren't wild like before. They shifted, reacted to the energy cell in his pouch. Some pulled back, others hesitated. It was still rough, scratches, tangled branches, but nowhere near what it was yesterday. They're moving, Luna whispered. I think they remember, he muttered. She got scratched, tripped once, landed in a nettle patch. You good? Rascal asked. She gritted her teeth. I'm not made of glass. By the time they broke through into the clearing, it was hot. Bright sun above, still air, weird quiet. The wreckage was all still there, metal ribs, torn wire, shattered panels. Luna looked around, wide-eyed. This isn't forest stuff. No, Rascal said, it's not. She knelt by a scorched metal sheet. What do you think it was? I don't know, but it matters. Rascal started scanning the ground, letting his eyes go soft, waiting for the pull. Then he saw it, half buried under some roots, a flattened disc, gold spirals etched across the surface. He reached for it and hissed, scratching his neck. Same spot, same annoying little bump. Ugh, that again, he muttered. You okay? Luna asked. Yeah, just this thing, it's nothing. He pulled the disc free. It hummed soft, like it wanted to sing but didn't know how. Luna leaned in. That one's different. Yeah, he said, it is. They didn't talk much on the walk back. Near the stream, Luna broke the silence. My parents disappeared when I was little. Rascal stopped walking. I don't remember it all, just flashing lights, running, yelling. I think it was a hunt. Foxes, get hunted. He went quiet. I waited, she said, a long time. Rascal looked at her, something deep cracking open. I don't know mine either, he said. She nodded. They didn't need more. The silence after that wasn't awkward. It was solid, safe. As they neared Rascal's den, the whole forest seemed to pause. Then, from one side of the sky to the other, a massive arc of silver light swept across the horizon. No sound, just pure energy. It moved slowly, like time didn't fully apply to it. Rascal felt it in his fur, in the ground, in the buzz beneath his skin. Luna gasped. What is that? I don't know, he said. They stood shoulder to shoulder watching it. Then, as the silver faded, I think, Luna whispered, we were meant to see that. Rascal didn't answer. Jance nodded. His paw drifted to the bump on his neck, but this time he didn't scratch. He let it buzz. And beside him, Luna stood strong and real. Audiobook narration, the one more piece. The meadow was still fogged over when Rascal stepped outside. Mist hung low, like the morning hadn't quite finished waking up. His door clicked shut behind him. His pouch was empty. But not for long. He had a mission. The energy cell had changed everything. The robot had moved, but it still wasn't right. Not yet. There was something missing. One last piece, and Rascal knew where it was. He headed for the Valley of Thorns. Then, good morning, little inventor. He froze. Luna, she stood in the grass like she'd been there the whole time, dew on her fur, clover behind one ear, smiling like yesterday never ended. Oh, hey, Rascal said. He kept walking. She caught up with a bounce. You saw me and pretended not to. Classic inventor move. I was focused. On what? He hesitated. Just going back, to that place. Can I come? Pause. It's a long hike, he warned. I like long hikes. It's full of thorns. I can handle thorns. You'll slow me down. I won't. He looked at her. She wasn't joking. Fine, but don't touch anything. She mock saluted. Yes, sir, Captain Tinker. They walked. The forest grew dense. The path narrowed. Shadows fell. So, Rascal said, do you always just walk into other people's lives? Only when they're building robots. He rolled his eyes. It's not magic. It feels like magic. He didn't say it, but he smiled, and then he told her things he hadn't told anyone. About the clearing, the wreckage, the metal that hummed like it remembered something. It's not natural, he said, but it's sad. Maybe it needed you, she said softly. They reached the valley. The thorn wall was worse than ever. Dense, dangerous. This is where it gets rough. "Let's go," she said. The path he'd cut was barely there, but the thorns moved, pulled back, shivered. "They're moving," Luna whispered. "I think they remember," Rascal said. She got scratched, tripped, fell into nettles. "You okay?" "I'm not made of glass," she muttered. And then, the clearing, bright, still, wreckage everywhere. "This isn't forest stuff," Luna said. "No," Rascal agreed. "It's not." He searched, let instinct guide him. And there it was, half-buried, gold spiral disc. He reached, scratch, neck again, same spot. "Ugh, that again. You okay?" "Yeah, just a weird bump. It's always been there." The disc hummed in his paw. Luna leaned close. "That one feels different." Rascal nodded. "It does." They walked home mostly in silence until... "My parents disappeared," Luna said. Rascal stopped. "I think it was a hunt," she said. "Foxes get hunted. I waited for them, a long time." Rascal looked at her and said, "I don't know mine either." No more words needed. They walked on. Near his den, the world paused. A silver arc traced across the sky. No sound, just light. They watched together. "What is that?" Luna whispered. "I don't know," Rascal said, but he couldn't stop looking. As it faded, "I think we were meant to see that," she said. Rascal nodded. His paw drifted to his neck. He let the buzz hum beneath his skin, and beside him, Luna stood, bright-eyed, brave, and real. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 5, or if you'd like a clean... Chapter 5. Ramble in the Sun Patch. By the time Rascal got back to his den, stars were starting to peek out. The sky was silver and quiet, like it was still processing what it had seen. The arc of light, that slow streak of something impossible across the world. Rascal stepped inside, dropped his pouch gently, and just stood there. His robot was still on the bench, silent, waiting. For once, Rascal didn't rush over to tweak or tinker. He just stared at it, wondering if, somehow, it had felt the light too. He slept, but not really. His dreams stayed blurry, like moths flickering just outside a lantern. Something had shifted. He still belonged to the forest, but it didn't contain him anymore. Morning sunlight drifted in like it had nowhere else to be. Rascal got up, washed his face, steeped tea, checked the robot, but his mind was somewhere else. Without really thinking, he grabbed his pouch and stepped outside. His paws just knew the way. Old trails, familiar steps. He wasn't looking for anything big, just peace, motion. Then he saw it, a clearing he didn't remember, circle of sunlight. Surrounded by birch trees, glowing like it had been waiting for him. That should have been weird. He knew these woods like his own tail. But the clearing felt right, like a forgotten memory, or a song he hadn't heard yet but already knew the words to. And then, crash! A blur of striped fur dropped out of the trees and slammed into him. Limbs, leaves, bottle caps, acorns flying everywhere, and a voice. Backwards and forwards, up becomes down. Crash landing, but flying I was. Surprise meeting, yay! Rascal sat up, stunned. Laying next to him was, well, a chipmunk, sort of, but not a normal one. This guy radiated chaos. His striped tail flicked like a drumbeat, and his paws scrambled to gather up dozens of scattered treasures like he was in the middle of a very personal scavenger hunt. "You okay?" Rascal asked, brushing moss off his fur. "Hurt?" the chipmunk echoed. "Hurt is inside ouchie, yes? But I am bouncy happy. Ramble I am. Meeting you is sunshine in my acorn pouch." He popped up and gave a kind of sneeze bow. His fur stuck out in all directions. Bits of leaf and twig everywhere like a forest sprite who'd been rolled down a hill. "Ramble," Rascal repeated, already smiling. "That's a name. Named after doing what I do. Ramble here, ramble there, ramble everywhere. But you," Ramble pointed dramatically, "raccoon friend with the quiet sad eyes, what name carries you?" "I'm Rascal," Ramble clapped. "Perfect name. Forest wanderer searching for what's not yet found." Then he started digging through his pouch again. "Special thing I have for meeting moments," he announced. Out came a polished bottle cap, but not just any cap. This one shimmered like moonlight was trapped inside, scattering rainbow sparks. "Glimmer cap," Ramble declared. "Found where moonbeams sleep, for keeping dark times less dark, for seeing when you forget how." Rascal turned it in his paw. Light danced off the surface like it meant something. "Ramble, this is beautiful. I can't take it. Can't!" Ramble gasped, scandalized. "Gift-giving is for friend-keeping, besides many, many glimmer caps I have." He dumped out an absurd collection of treasures, glass pebbles, crystals, shiny coins, even a walnut shell turned into a compass. "You made these?" "Made, found, discovered. Forest gifts with purpose waiting." He pointed again. Like you, maybe? That landed deeper than Rascal expected. What do you mean? Forest walking alone, not same as being alone, Ramble said, now sitting cross-legged. East pulls you, even when you know not why. Rascal blinked. How do you know I'm going east? Walk pattern, Ramble said simply. Also, silver wind whispers. Very chatty. Rascal's heart skipped. You've heard it? Heard, felt, followed, Ramble grinned. It sings to the special ones who need reminding. But first, game. Game? Fun having time. Glimmer hunt. And with zero explanation, Ramble began hopping from item to item, singing something that sounded like a babbling brook set to music. Find the thing that calls your heart song, he chirped. Feel, don't just see. Rascal knelt, touched a green glass teardrop. Cool, quiet, not it. A crystal glowing gold close, but no. A button, carved from bone, etched in symbols. When he touched it, he felt it. Warmth, memory, hope, like it knew him. That's the one, Ramble shouted. Old song button, waiting for you. What kind of song? Travelling, remembering, the kind that helps when the way gets cloudy. Just then, Ramble jumped, landed in the centre of the clearing, and scraped away some moss. Underneath, a carved spiral, alive, moving without moving, light pulsed from within, tiny star points breathing like living constellations. Rascal stared, not a map of places, a map of connections, of meanings. Star map, Ramble whispered. Been waiting for you. My quest path? Yes, yes, see, he pointed at the spiral's brightest curve. East leads to the place of choosing, where hollow trees hold old wisdom. Rascal followed the line. His chest felt like it had just locked into place. The hollow tree, he whispered. Hollow tree, Ramble echoed. Great wonder, great danger. But first, promise making time. Promise. Promise to listen when silence speaks, to see with heart eyes, to carry friendship even when things get dark. Rascal nodded. I promise. Ramble's grin nearly swallowed his face. Good, tomorrow morning. Twisted oak, sunrise, bring what matters, leave what doesn't. Then, poof, he was gone, bounding into the woods like joy on legs. Rascal stood in the glowing sun patch, the spiral still at his feet. The wind whispered around him, and behind his fur that little bump on his neck tingled. He reached for it, paused, lowered his paw, and looked east. Something was calling, and now he was ready to answer. Ramble in the sun patch performed. The stars were already out when Rascal got home. The forest was quiet, but not the usual kind, not sleepy, more like waiting. He set down his pouch, looked at the robot across the room, didn't move toward it, just watched. Did you feel it too, he wondered, that silver arc across the sky, that stillness that wasn't empty? He slept, barely. Morning came like a soft hello. He got up, tea, robot, same routine. But something in him had changed. He stepped outside, his feet just moved, no plan, just motion. Then, a clearing, sunlight, birch trees, a space he didn't remember but somehow recognized. And wham! A chipmunk fell out of the sky. Treasure everywhere. Crash landing but flying I was, the voice shouted. Surprise meeting, yay! Rascal sat up and met Ramble, a chipmunk who seemed made of chaos and lightning. Ramble pointed. You, raccoon friend, what name carries you? Rascal, he said. Perfect name. Now gift time. He handed Rascal a shimmering bottle cap, a glimmer cap. Helps you see when you forget how, Ramble said proudly. Rascal was stunned. This is beautiful. Of course it is. I collect beauty. He showed Rascal his treasures. Then game time. Glimmer hunt. Rascal touched each one until the button, bone, symbols, warmth. Yes, that one, Ramble cheered. It sings, Rascal whispered. Then Ramble landed in the centre of the clearing, moss scraped away, a spiral, alive with stars, a map, but not of land, of meaning. Your path, Ramble said quietly. It leads east to the hollow tree. Rascal breathed. The hollow tree. Promise me, Ramble said, to listen, to see, to carry friendship when it's dark. I promise. Sunrise, twisted oak, bring what matters. And poof, he was gone. Rascal stood alone, except he wasn't. The spiral glowed at his feet, the wind whispered, and his neck tingled. Something was waking up. He reached for it, paused, then turned to the east. Adventure was calling, and this time, he was ready. Chapter 6 Rewrite, The Valley of Golden Dreams, Gen Z edition. The sun had just started climbing the sky when Rascal stepped out of his den. His pouch was strapped across his shoulder, and something in his chest felt different, like today actually meant something. He paused, looked back one last time at the little maple tree he called home. The fogged-up windows, the carefully sorted tools, the quiet comfort of everything in its place. He didn't know when he'd be back, or who he'd be when he returned. Up ahead, just off the trail, Ramble was already doing spins in the dirt. "Adventure Day! Adventure Day!" the chipmunk sang, bouncing like a squirrel on double espresso. "Golden grass! Dreamy sass! Let's follow fate and eat snacks!" Rascal smirked. "Let's maybe save the acrobatics till after breakfast?" Ramble skidded to a halt. Minimum flips, maximum hype. But just as Rascal took his first step, a voice cut through the trees. "Where are you two off to so early?" Luna stepped into the light. Rascal's chest tightened. She looked sleepy but curious. Her red fur caught the sun like fire. She had that look on her face, the one that always made him forget how words worked. He froze. "Oh, hey, Luna." "Adventure?" she asked. "Kind of." He rubbed his neck. "We're going to find the hollow tree." Luna's face changed. That name meant something to her. "The hollow tree? That's really far." "Exactly," Rascal said, trying to sound confident. Ramble added, "Far, far and dream-filled, like a bedtime story that forgot how to end." Luna took a step closer. "Can I come?" Rascal's mouth opened, then closed. "Would you mind staying back instead?" he asked. "Just watch the den. Make sure nobody messes with my stuff." Luna blinked. "Oh, sure, yeah, I can do that." Then softer. "I've heard things about the path east. They say there's a part of the forest that forgets how to smile. Like even happy hearts can get lost there." Rascal didn't know what to say. Ramble went totally silent. Luna stepped forward and hugged him. No drama, just real. "Come back, okay?" "I will," he said. Then he turned and didn't look back. The trail east started bright, birds chirping, breeze warm, trees pulling back like they were giving them room. And then they hit it. The Valley of Golden Dreams. It didn't look real. Tall golden grass waved like it was dancing. Wildflowers exploded in color, reds, blues, oranges, colors that didn't even have names. And the pollen? It sparkled like actual gold dust drifting through the air. The ground felt soft, like it wanted them to bounce. And slowly, all the stress, gone. Like the valley was giving them permission to just feel okay. "Happy air!" Ramble shouted, flopping into a pile of marigolds. "Breath treasure for the soul!" Rascal couldn't stop smiling. They reached a glowing stream and drank. The water tasted like warm memories. He felt things he didn't know he missed, being hugged, inventing something new, laughing for no reason. Even Ramble went quiet. He held a peach blossom like it was priceless. "This place," Rascal whispered, "it's perfect." "Dream real," Ramble said, eyes soft. "Some say it's made from the size of sleeping stars." Time stopped making sense. They stayed a while. Could have been hours, could have been days. But eventually the gold started to fade. At the edge of the valley the grass grew brittle. Flowers thinned out. The light got weird, muted, hesitant. Ahead was fog, a grey wall that didn't move, didn't shimmer. Just was. Rascal turned around. The valley still glowed. He could have gone back, laid in the grass, stayed forever. "Think we'll ever come back?" he asked. Ramble's ears twitched. Maybe yes, maybe no. Golden places are for remembering, not always for returning. Rascal nodded. Then they stepped forward, into the grey. At first it was small stuff. The breeze behind them stopped. The air felt flat. Then came the fog, cold, quiet, heavy. It curled around their legs, crept up their chests. Rascal felt the joy he'd gathered stall, like it didn't know where to go. Not darkness, just sadness. That kind of silence that makes birds stop singing, the kind that doesn't yell at you. Just presses. Ramble didn't bounce anymore. His tail dragged, his ears drooped. Still, they kept walking. The fog thickened. Sounds vanished. Colours faded. Trees turned to shadows. The path disappeared. It felt like walking into someone else's memory. One soaked in loss. Whatever was ahead was already watching. Chapter 7. The Fog of Despair. Leaving the valley felt like waking up from the best dream you've ever had. Too early, too fast, and way too cold. Like someone ripped the blanket off your soul. The world dulled around them. First the sounds vanished, then the colours bled out like someone turned down the saturation on reality itself. Even time seemed to forget how to move, stuttering like a broken TikTok video. The air thickened like soup left out too long, heavy and wrong. Fog rolled in from everywhere and nowhere at once, curling around Rascal and Ramble like a wet, invisible blanket they couldn't shake off. Each step was harder than the last. Like the fog wasn't just around them, it was in them, weighing them down, whispering things they weren't ready to hear. Things like you're not enough and why even try, and everyone leaves eventually. Rascal's voice cracked the silence like breaking glass. This is it. This is the place Luna warned us about. The sad place that eats the joy out of you. Ramble didn't answer at first. He just kept walking, but slower, slower. His tail drooped like a wilting flower, and the sparkle in his eyes, gone, dimmed to nothing. Finally he mumbled, voice thick and distant, "Heavy my legs feel, dog water I feel like." Rascal grabbed his friend's paw. Cold, too cold. Way too cold for someone who burned so bright just hours ago. "We're okay," he said quickly, maybe trying to convince himself. "You're okay, just stay with me. Don't get lost in here." The fog grew thicker, denser. Rascal could barely see Ramble beside him, even as he held on tight enough to bruise. Inside, something was shifting, doubt creeping in like static on an old radio. What if the hollow tree isn't even real? What if this whole journey is just me losing my mind? What if none of this matters? What if I'm just a stupid kid chasing fairy tales? He shook his head violently. No, don't think like that. But Ramble stumbled, hard. He caught himself on shaking legs. Took one more step, then another, slower. Then he stopped. Dead stop. "My feet," Ramble muttered, staring down confused like he'd never seen paws before. "Move they don't wanna. Mine anymore. Like they're not. Someone else wearing my body, it's like." "You're just tired," Rascal said, too fast, too loud, panic creeping into his voice. "It's the fog messing with our heads. Keep going. Just keep going, we're almost through." Ramble tried. With everything, he tried. He pushed off the ground with everything he had. One foot lifted, trembling with effort, the other didn't. It was stuck. Actually stuck, like the earth had grown fingers. He pitched forward, caught himself on a gnarled root, then looked up at Rascal with pure panic flooding his eyes. The kind of panic that makes your chest tight and your vision blur. "Forgot how to walk. It's like—" "I did," he said, breathless and breaking. "Ghost me like this, don't. Body, please. Work, I need you to." "You're fine," Rascal said, trying to sound confident but failing completely. "Lock in and beat this. Just push through, like you always do." Swear I'm trying," Ramble cried, voice cracking on every word. He planted his paws and strained until his muscles screamed, but the mud clutched tighter like quicksand made of pure despair. "Listen, why won't my legs? So heavy everything is. Why?" He reached for Rascal's arm, desperate. Rascal grabbed him under his arms and heaved, teeth clenched, paws sinking deeper into the slop with every pull. The mud made gross sucking noises, like it was hungry. Come on! You're stronger than this! Don't quit on me!" "Not you. Never you," Ramble whimpered, a sound that cut straight through Rascal's chest. "Quit, I don't wanna. Just stuck I am. Says go. My brain does, but no says everything else. Gave up without asking me first, like my body did." "You're not stuck. I got you. We're a team, remember?" Rascal's arms trembled as he pulled again, this time screaming with effort. "You don't bail on me, Ramble. We don't bail on each other." But Ramble's feet sank deeper. The earth sucked him in with slow, greedy patience, like it had been waiting for this moment forever. "Fight it! Fight it! Fight it! Fight it!" Rascal begged, muscles burning, tears hot in his eyes. "You're the strongest little chipmunk I know. You made me believe in magic." "Can't," Ramble gasped, sinking past his ankles now. Losing to it I am. And hate it I do. Hate that just be strong I can't, like you need me to be." "No," Rascal shouted, voice raw. "We're right there. The tree is waiting. You have to stay with me." Ramble stared at him, his eyes wide and terrified and so tired. "Enough. What if I'm not? Never was. What if I?" "You are. You're everything. You're the reason I even made it this far." Rascal's voice broke completely. "You made me brave." But Ramble was slipping, physically and mentally. His paws trembled like autumn leaves. His head dropped like it weighed 1,000 pounds. His breath came slow and shallow like he was already somewhere else. Rascal collapsed next to him in the mud, shaking so hard he could barely speak. "Please don't leave me. Please, I need you. You're my best friend. You're my person." Ramble blinked slowly, each blink taking forever. A single tear traced down his cheek, cutting through the grime. "The first one who saw me, you were, Rascal. Really saw me, you did. Laugh when backwards I talked, who didn't, or too excited about everything I got. Listened when rambled I did, you did. Stayed when everyone else walked away, you did. I'll always stay." Ramble smiled then, weak but real, like sunrise through storm clouds. Why this hurts so much, that's... Stay any more, I don't think I can. And sorry, I am. So sorry, so sorry. No, please, just hold on. You're almost out, just one more push. For me? Ramble closed his eyes, and when he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Tell the tree. Tell it tried, I did. Really, really tried, I did. No. No, 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 Rascal whispered, voice completely shattered. Don't say goodbye. Don't you dare say goodbye to me. But Ramble, he was already fading. His legs vanished beneath the mud. His fur hardened, greyed, lost all its warmth, all its life. His eyes drifted shut like he was just going to sleep. And still Rascal clung to him, shouting his name, crying until his throat was raw, shaking him like he could wake him up from this nightmare. Ramble! Ramble! Wake up! This isn't funny, this isn't... You can't. Then stillness. Complete, devastating stillness. Ramble was stone, grey stone with one paw outstretched, still pointing forward, still believing even in stone, even when everything else had stopped. No, Rascal whispered. The word fell into the silence like a stone into deep water. He crumbled beside the statue, folding in on himself like a house of cards in a hurricane. His whole body shook with sobs that came from somewhere deeper than his chest, from the place where hope used to live. I failed, he said out loud, voice hollow and broken. I let him fall. I should have held tighter. I should have been stronger. I should have... His voice cracked and died. What if the hollow tree was never real, he whispered to the fog. What if I'm just a stupid kid who got his best friend killed chasing fairy tales? The doubt poured in like acid. What if I don't matter? What if this is just all there is? Just losing people and pretending it means something? He curled into a ball beside the statue, sobbing quietly now, the kind of crying that empties you out completely. You were the only one who made me feel like I belonged somewhere, Ramble. The only one who made this whole nightmare feel like an adventure. The only one who made me feel like I was worth something. His claws dug into the dirt until they bled. I can't do this without you. I don't know how to be brave without you cheering me on. The fog pressed in, cold and quiet and patient, waiting, and for a long moment, longer than he'd ever admit, he thought about staying, just lying there in the mud, letting the grey take him too. It would be easier, it would hurt less. Maybe that's what I deserve. He closed his eyes and let the cold seep in. Maybe this is where my story ends too. But then, a flicker, the tiniest warmth. Something at the back of his neck pulsed, just once, barely there. It wasn't loud, it wasn't bright, it wasn't a miracle, but it felt like Ramble's voice, faint and distant but definitely there. Got this you have. Built different you are. Rascal's eyes snapped open, dazed and disoriented. The statue hadn't changed, but somehow in the grey light it seemed to glow just slightly, like the stone remembered how to smile, like love could live in rock and fog and broken hearts. He reached out with shaking fingers and pressed his forehead to the outstretched paw. The stone was warm, impossibly warm. I'll carry you, he whispered, voice thick with tears and something that might have been determination. Every step, every story, every stupid joke you never got to finish. I'll carry all of you. He stayed there a while, crying, remembering how Ramble used to hum off-key when he was happy, how he'd get so excited about clouds that he'd forget to walk straight, how he'd always share his food even when there wasn't enough, how he'd stayed close when Rascal got scared in the dark parts of their journey, how he'd made everything feel possible, and finally promising. I'll tell everyone, he said softly, forehead pressed against the stone, how you made the fog crack a smile that one time, how you never gave up, not really, how you helped me believe in magic, how you made everything feel like an adventure, even the scary parts. He pulled back and looked into the statue's face, still peaceful, still hopeful. And hey, he said with the ghost of a smile, remember yesterday when you tried to eat that cloud? You said it tasted like cotton candy, but I think you just got a mouthful of bug. You were so confused. His voice broke again. I was just getting used to your weird ideas. A breeze stirred then, soft at first, then stronger. For the first time in what felt like forever, the fog began to thin. Not disappear, it would probably always be there a little, but thin enough to see the path ahead. Rascal stood slowly, legs shaking like a newborn deer, eyes red and swollen, face streaked with mud and tears, but something inside him was solid now, set like concrete, different than before. heavier, but maybe stronger too. He didn't look back, couldn't look back. But the statue stayed behind, still smiling, still pointing toward something better, still believing, even in stone. And Rascal walked forward, one step, then another, carrying his new best friend like a heartbeat in his chest, like a song only he could hear, toward the hollow tree, toward whatever came next, toward something that still mattered, even when everything else felt lost, even when the fog whispered that nothing would ever be the same, especially then. Chapter 8. The Echoes That Carry Us. Rascal trudged on, each paw step a battle against the thick, heavy silence that pressed in from all sides. The fog clung to him like cold, wet cloth, like depression made physical, wrapping his limbs in doubt and dread. The path ahead had vanished entirely now, if it could even be called a path at all. His surroundings were nothing but grey. Grey ground, grey sky, grey thoughts spiralling into grey everything. He blinked hard, but nothing changed. There was no edge to this place, no centre, no exit sign. Only an endless blur of sorrow pressing in like a storm that had forgotten how to end. Like his brain had blue-screened and stuck on the worst possible screensaver. His legs ached, his chest burned, his heart sagged under the weight of questions he could no longer ignore, the kind that hit at 3 a.m. when your brain decides to be your worst enemy. Why did I think I could do this? Why did I leave Whimsy Wood? Why did I let Ramble go? The memory hit him like a slap. Ramble, his wild dancing energy turned still and silent, transformed into stone as if joy itself had been frozen mid-laugh. Rascal could still feel the chipmunk's tiny paw slipping from his grip, still hear his voice whisper, "Tell the tree. Tell it tried. I did." His chest tightened. The grief was everywhere now, in his bones, in his breath, in the spaces between his thoughts. Rascal stopped walking. For a long time, he simply stood there, shoulders hunched, tail dragging in the damp earth like a wilted flag of surrender. The fog swirled around him, whispering lies in the tones of his own thoughts. The intrusive ones. The mean ones. You don't know what you're doing. You were never meant to find the hollow tree. You're not special. You're just a dumb kid who got his friend killed. Everyone was wrong about you. He squeezed his eyes shut and covered his ears, trying to block out the voices, but they weren't coming from outside. They were coming from inside. The despair had gotten in, like malware in his brain. For a moment, a long, dangerous moment, he thought of turning back, going home, giving up, telling everyone he tried but it was too hard, and maybe someone else should save the world, because he was obviously not built for this. Maybe I'm just not the main character after all. And then, soft as sunlight through leaves, he heard her. "Straighten up, little soldier." Rascal gasped, eyes snapping open. It wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But it was her voice. Luna's voice, warm and fierce and absolutely not taking any of his nonsense. "You can't let this fog win. You're stronger than it. You are." He looked around wildly, nothing but grey. But the voice, it felt so real it made his chest ache with homesickness for someone he'd only known for 2 days. "I'm losing it," he whispered to himself. "I'm actually losing it." But then the warmth hit him. A thread of something bright shimmered in his chest, barely visible but real. It pulsed in time with his breath, like his heart was trying to remind him of something important. He took another step, shaky, uncertain, but a step. "You have the strength, Rascal," the voice said again, like a memory wrapped in wind. "You have the energy. You are special, even when you don't feel like it, especially then." Tears welled in his eyes, unbidden but welcome. Not the bitter ones from before. These were different, hope tears, the kind that hurt in a good way. He remembered the way Luna had smiled at him in the clearing, the way she had leaned forward, bright-eyed and brave. She believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. Another step, easier this time. And then he thought of Ramble again. What would his backwards-talking chipmunk friend say if he saw him now? If he could see him giving up in the grey? Probably something like, "Fog walking like nut finding in the dark. It is hard, yes, but shiny surprises come if stumble forward you do. Quit on yourself, don't you dare." Rascal chuckled through the tears. It hurt, but it helped. Like laughing at a funeral. Wrong, but somehow exactly right. He imagined Ramble's laugh, the way it had filled their short time together with mischief and wonder. How he'd made everything feel possible even when nothing made sense. He imagined him dancing through the mist ahead, leaving a trail of bottle caps like breadcrumbs, calling back, "Catching up! Why aren't you? Adventure waiting it is!" And Rascal followed that imagined voice. The fog still weighed on him. It didn't let up. Grief doesn't work like that. But now it didn't own him. Now it had to compete with the flicker of belief that glowed deep inside, the voices of those who had seen something in him he had yet to fully see himself. Found family, he thought suddenly. That's what Luna and Ramble had been, even for just 2 days. The people who choose you when you can't choose yourself. He walked for what felt like hours or days, or maybe it was only minutes. Time had no meaning in this place, like the world was buffering. But finally, the fog began to thin. The air grew lighter. The grey began to lift like someone was slowly turning up the brightness on reality. The thick fog began to unravel like an old dream, peeling away from the landscape in soft ribbons until Rascal could finally see, not just a few steps ahead, but beyond, way beyond. And there it was. Holy, he breathed, stopping dead in his tracks. Atop a towering hill that seemed to rise straight out of the earth like the back of some ancient sleeping giant, stood a tree unlike any Rascal had ever seen. It wasn't just big, it was colossal. A monument of bark and branch that dwarfed every other tree in the forest, that made everything else look like toys. Its trunk was wide enough to house 100 dens, gnarled and time-worn, with roots that spilled down the hillside like petrified waterfalls. But it wasn't the size that stopped Rascal in his tracks and made his brain go loading, processing. It was the light. From the center of its vast, hollowed trunk radiated a soft golden glow, warm, steady, alive. Not electric light or fire, but something else entirely. Something that felt like pure hope made visible. The light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, like breath. Like the universe itself was living inside that tree, waiting. It poured from the hollow like a secret that had waited centuries to be discovered. Like the world's best-kept Easter egg, hidden in plain sight. Even from this distance, Rascal could feel it in his bones. His fur tingled like he'd touched a live wire, but good tingling, life-tingling. The ground beneath his paws felt subtly different, less like dirt, more like meaning. Like every step was suddenly important, a low hum stirred in his bones, ancient and strange and oddly familiar. He took a step forward, breath catching in his chest, and then it happened again. That flicker, that twinge. The same faint electric pulse he had felt before, the strange little bump on the back of his neck buzzed with sudden heat. Not painful, but insistent. Like his body was trying to tell him something his brain hadn't figured out yet. Rascal reached up and rubbed at it, brow furrowed. He hadn't thought about it much before. Not really. It had always been there, a harmless little thing, like a birthmark with an attitude. But now, as his paw rested against it and his eyes locked on the hollow tree glowing in the distance, something inside him shifted, clicked into place. Was there a connection? Could this weird spark thing be drawn to that place? Am I actually supposed to be here? He didn't know. But he felt it. A pull deeper than instinct, deeper than thought. Like part of him had been waiting his whole life to see this tree, and the tree had been waiting too. Like they were two halves of something that was finally coming together. A breeze stirred the grass around him, and for just a moment it felt like the forest itself was exhaling. Like the land recognized him, welcomed him, chose him. "This is so weird," he whispered, but he was smiling, actually smiling. "This is so weird, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but—" He looked up at the tree, glowing like a beacon in the growing dusk. But maybe that's okay. Rascal stood tall, or as tall as his tired little frame could manage. His eyes traced the winding path up the massive hill. It wouldn't be easy. The slope looked steep and treacherous, tangled with bramble and stone, like a final boss level designed to test everything he'd learned. But the light at the top, that light, was calling. Not demanding, not threatening, just calling. Like home. He didn't know what he would find in the hollow tree. He didn't know if he was brave enough for whatever came next. He didn't know if he deserved to be here. But for the first time since stepping into the fog, Rascal didn't feel lost. He felt chosen. And that, he realized with a flutter of something that might have been confidence, might be enough. Might be more than enough. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and set his sights on the climb. The mysterious bump on his neck gave one more little pulse, like it was saying finally or about time or maybe just let's go. Tomorrow he would begin again. Tomorrow he would reach the hollow tree. Tonight he would rest and remember that sometimes the most important journeys start with just putting one paw in front of the other. Especially when you have no idea where you're going. Chapter 9. Beneath the Stars. Rascal didn't climb the hill that evening. Nope, not happening, not today. Instead, he found a soft patch of moss tucked beneath a willow whose roots curled into the hillside like gentle arms, cradling the earth like it knew exactly what he needed. A small stream trickled nearby, singing quietly to itself, the kind of white noise that hits different when your brain won't stop spinning. The fog of despair was far behind now, but not forgotten. Never forgotten. And the hollow tree waited above, glowing like a promise he wasn't sure he deserved to keep. But tonight was not for climbing. Tonight was for processing. For sitting with all the feelings he'd been carrying like stones in his chest. Tonight was for remembering. Rascal gathered what he could find. Dried leaves for warmth, a few sprigs of mint-scented herbs to clear his head, because seriously, his thoughts were loud tonight. He tucked them around the nest-shaped dip in the moss and settled in, tail curled loosely around his side, ears twitching with the sounds of the forest beginning to wind down for the night. He was tired, deeper than bones tired. The kind of tired that came from the inside out, like his soul needed a software update, not just from walking or climbing or trudging through literal emotional quicksand, but from carrying things that didn't always have names. Grief, hope, fear. That weird mix of I can do this and I'm totally going to mess this up that felt like drinking anxiety with a side of determination. He stared up at the stars. They shimmered above him in rivers and scatterings, like someone had taken a great net of light and yeeted it across the sky. Some blinked gently, others held steady, and every now and then one would stretch into a slow drifting arc, like it was reaching for something just out of sight. Like the universe was doing its own little light show just for him. He'd always wondered about the stars, what they were, where they came from, whether they were holes punched in the sky to let heaven peek through, or travellers themselves, lighting the way home for those who had lost their path. Sometimes he imagined they were eyes, kind eyes, watching over him like some cosmic support system. Other times he wondered if they were seeds, waiting to fall and grow new worlds where maybe things made more sense. And tonight he wondered if anyone else, somewhere far away, was staring up at his star. If Ramble was somehow up there, probably collecting the shiniest ones and talking to them backwards. That thought hit different. He closed his eyes and let the night wrap around him like the world's softest weighted blanket. First, inevitably, he thought of Ramble. The little chipmunk with his backwards voice and endless glittering treasures who'd made everything feel like an adventure even when it was terrifying. Rascal could still feel the weight of Ramble's paw in his, the stubborn way he tried to keep moving even as the fog took hold, that bright smile that could probably power a small city, the twinkle in those mischievous eyes, the endless optimism that made Rascal believe maybe he wasn't completely hopeless. And then, the silence, the stone, the way everything just stopped. Rascal's chest tightened like someone was squeezing his heart with both hands. A tear slipped from the corner of his eye and disappeared into his fur, the kind of tear that sneaks up on you when you're trying so hard to hold it together. "Still with me," he whispered, barely a breath. "You're still with me, aren't you? Please let the stars carry words. Please let him know I tried to save him. Please let him know it mattered." He hoped. More than anything, he hoped. Then his thoughts drifted, naturally quietly, to Luna. She had surprised him, completely blindsided him in the best possible way. From the moment she stepped into his den with her bright questions and fearless heart, something had shifted in his world. She saw him, not just the weird inventor kid or the loner who talked to his tools, but the heart behind the hands. She didn't flinch at his failures, didn't make him feel small for caring too much about things other people thought were stupid. She had listened. Actually listened. Not the fake kind where people wait for their turn to talk, but the real kind where they hear you. She had believed in him when he couldn't even believe in himself. And maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to think she might have been onto something. He wondered what she was doing right now. Sleeping, probably, or staring at the same stars, thinking her lunar thoughts. Maybe watching over his den like he'd asked her to, probably getting into everything because that's just who she was. He smiled at that, picturing her curled up in his mossy corner, definitely poking at all his tools, pretending she wasn't curious while being the most curious person alive. I hope I get to see her again. I hope I don't mess this up so bad that she regrets believing in me. He hoped a lot of things. The stream gurgled softly nearby, like the Earth's version of lo-fi beats. A frog croaked from somewhere farther off, probably complaining about the weather or something equally frog-like, and the night pressed gently inward. Not heavy like the fog had been, but comforting, like a hug from the universe. Rascal felt his thoughts begin to wander, like fireflies blinking lazily at dusk, random and soft and kind of beautiful. He thought of his mother. Not his real mother. He didn't know who that was. And honestly, sometimes it was better not to think too hard about that particular plot hole in his origin story. But the kind otter who had raised him by the water's edge, teaching him to wash his face every morning like it was a sacred ritual, to listen to the sound of the current and trust where it led, even when you couldn't see around the bend. She had wrapped him in reeds when he was cold and hummed stories into his ears when the nightmares got too loud. Stories about brave little creatures who saved the day not because they were special, but because they didn't give up when things got hard. Turns out those weren't just stories. He missed her laugh. It was like riverlight on stone, bright and dancing and impossible to catch, but so beautiful you didn't mind just watching it happen. Then there was Uncle Thistle, the wild-eyed badger with the Einstein fur and the head full of bedtime nonsense that somehow always made sense later. Every story he told felt absolutely unhinged and somehow profound at the same time. He had warned Rascal about skyfish, still not entirely convinced those aren't real. Rain that made you forget your name, jury's out. And trees that could walk when you weren't looking. Okay, that one's definitely happening somewhere. Rascal smiled despite himself. Most of it was fiction, probably. But Uncle Thistle's heart had always been real. Always big enough to hold whatever weird questions Rascal brought him, no matter how ridiculous. And there were others, too. A doe who brought food when the river was low and didn't make a big deal about it. A crow who left shiny trinkets at his doorstep like the world's most persistent gift-giver. Even that annoying little sister, Maple, who had always poked her nose into his projects and tried to drag him outside to actually talk to people like some kind of social butterfly. They had all shaped him, each one a thread in the tapestry of who he was becoming, each one a voice in his head saying you matter, even when he couldn't hear it over all the noise. And now he was here. On the side of a mountain, staring up at a tree that glowed like it had swallowed the sun and was trying to digest pure magic, wondering if he was strong enough to climb towards something he didn't understand but somehow knew in his bones. This is so weird. My life is so weird. He reached for the back of his neck again. The tiny nodule tingled beneath his paw, just faintly, just enough to remind him it was there. It always seemed to react to moments like this. Moments that felt big, moments that mattered, moments when the universe was trying to tell him something and he was too dense to get the message. Maybe that's what it was. A compass pointing towards something. A signal saying, pay attention, this is important. A piece of something ancient whispering that he was on the right path, even when the path looked like it had been designed by someone with a serious grudge against logical navigation. He didn't know, not yet. But as he gazed up at the hollow tree, silhouetted against the vast sky like something out of a Studio Ghibli fever dream, golden light pulsing from its center like the universe's nightlight, Rascal felt something rise within him. Hope. Not certainty. He wasn't ready for that level of confidence yet. But hope. The stubborn kind. The kind that says maybe I can do this even when everything else is screaming you're going to faceplant so hard. And that, for tonight, was enough. More than enough. He curled deeper into his mossy bed, letting the hum of stars and the trickle of the stream lull him towards sleep. His brain finally started to quiet, the anxious chatter fading to a manageable whisper. Dreams came quickly, and they were bright. In the soft twilight of half-sleep, just as the stars above began to blur into silver rivers and his consciousness started doing that floaty thing where reality gets bendy, Rascal saw her, Luna. She stood on a hill not far from his own, fur glowing pale under the starlight like she was lit from within, her eyes wide with wonder and something deeper, something fierce and protective. And so Luna, it made his chest ache with missing her. She didn't speak at first, only looked at him the way she always did, like he was more than he believed himself to be, like she could see some version of him that he hadn't grown into yet. And then, gently, her voice carried on the wind like the most perfect text message the universe ever sent. "You're stronger than you think, Rascal." The words wrapped around him like the world's best hug. He tried to speak, but couldn't. His throat was tight, his chest heavy with all the things he wanted to say but didn't know how. "I miss you. I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't." Luna stepped forward, her form becoming more diffuse, like moonlight through fog, like she was dissolving into the dream itself. "When the climb feels too steep, remember what's inside you, what we've seen, what you've already overcome." What I've already overcome. The fog. Losing Ramble. Not giving up when giving up would have been so much easier. Maybe I'm stronger than I think. Rascal reached out, not fully asleep, not fully awake, somewhere in that in-between space where impossible things feel completely normal. His paw touched only air, but in that moment, it didn't matter. She was there. She was real. She was still believing in him. She smiled, soft and brave and absolutely devastating, and added, almost teasingly, in that voice that meant "Get your act together, but I love you anyway. And straighten up, little soldier, the mountain won't climb itself." Then she was gone. But the glow she left behind stayed with him, warm and steady like a candle flame in his chest. And far across the valley, unseen by any waking eye, the hollow tree pulsed. Just once. A golden shimmer moved within its ancient core, as if the tree had heard her words, as if it, too, were waiting. As if everything in this weird, magical world was somehow connected, somehow rooting for him. The little bump on the back of his neck flickered once beneath his fur, no tingle this time, just a quiet warmth, like the hush before a sunrise. Like his body was saying we got this, even when his brain was still loading. Then stillness. The forest exhaled, and beneath the watchful stars, Rascal slept. Tomorrow the climb would begin, and he would not climb alone, never alone. Chapter 10. The Climb. In the space between earth and sky, where silence holds its deepest truths, a small figure began his ascent toward destiny. No pressure or anything. The sun had not yet climbed over the treetops when Rascal stirred from his makeshift nest beneath the singing willows. The hollow tree loomed above him in the morning mist, ancient, patient, absolutely terrifying in its beauty. Its trunk rose like a cathedral spire into clouds that seemed to glow with their own inner light, and from somewhere within its hollow heart came the faintest whisper of cosmic wind. This is it. This is actually happening. He gathered his few possessions with hands that only shook a little. The leather satchel Luna had given him, still warm somehow, like it remembered her touch. His carefully chosen tools wrapped in soft cloth, each one selected from his workshop with the same care he might choose friends for a journey. The small bronze compass that pointed not north but toward whatever he needed most. His fingers brushed the mysterious bump at the base of his neck, feeling it give a gentle thrum, like his body was syncing with something only the stars understood. Today, he thought, touching the bark of a silver birch in farewell, I discover what lies beyond the edge of who I've always been. No going back now. Not that there was ever really a choice. The lower slopes welcomed him with soft grass and meandering deer paths, the mountain being polite before showing its true personality. But as the hours passed and the forest thinned below him, the mountain began to reveal what it actually thought about small raccoons with big dreams. This was not merely stone and earth, but a living mirror designed by someone with serious trust issues. Each step seemed specifically calibrated to reflect back the truths he had been running from, the fears that lived in the spaces between heartbeats, the doubts that whispered, "You're not ready for this," every time he paused to catch his breath. The air grew thinner, charged with the electricity of approaching revelation. Strange birds with voices like whispered secrets called from trees that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them, which was unsettling in a way that made his skin crawl. Flowers bloomed in colours that had no names, but spoke directly to the parts of his heart that remembered being very young and very alone and wondering if anyone would ever really see him. Apparently, the mountain has opinions about my emotional baggage. By midday, when the sun hung like a pearl in the pale sky and his legs felt like overcooked noodles, Rascal reached a place where the familiar ended and the impossible began. Oh good, just what I needed. More impossible. The first trial, the circle of voices. The path widened into a circular clearing, perfectly round as if carved by intention rather than chance. At its centre stood a simple wooden chair that looked innocuous enough to be absolutely dangerous, and around its edges, half hidden in shadow and mist, figures began to materialize. Great. Hallucinations. That's not ominous at all. They looked like creatures from his forest home, but their eyes held the particular cruelty that comes when fear wears the mask of judgment. A squirrel with two bright eyes and a voice like breaking glass. A rabbit whose smile never reached beyond its teeth. The kind of smile that meant I'm about to say something that will hurt and pretend it's helpful. An owl whose wisdom had curdled into the need to diminish others. Look what's crawled up from the forest floor. The squirrel tittered, its voice echoing strangely in the circular space. Did you really think you belonged among the stars? You're nothing but a tinkerer playing with scraps. Rascal's step faltered. These weren't real creatures. He could sense that much, like his brain was buffering and couldn't quite load them properly. But the words hit with the precision of arrows finding their marks, striking every insecurity he'd carried since childhood, like they had a targeting system specifically designed for his damage. So serious, so strange, laughed the rabbit, its nose twitching with mock sympathy that felt like acid, always building things instead of playing, always asking questions that make everyone uncomfortable. Do you think Luna really likes you, or does she just feel sorry for the weird little raccoon who talks to machines? That one hit different. His chest tightened like someone was squeezing his heart with both hands. The chair in the center seemed to beckon, but Rascal couldn't make his paws move toward it. The circle of voices grew louder, more insistent, like a comment section come to life. You don't fit anywhere, hissed the owl, its head rotating with unnatural smoothness that made his stomach flip. Too clever for the simple forest folk, too simple for true wisdom. Neither fish nor fowl, neither fully accepted nor entirely alone. Just awkward, just different, just not quite right. The words wrapped around Rascal like chains, and for a moment he was 7 years old again, watching other kids play games he didn't understand, building inventions in the corner, while laughter happened somewhere else. The familiar ache of not belonging settled in his chest like a stone he'd been carrying his whole life. Don't cry. Don't you dare cry in front of the fake trauma squirrel. But then, unbidden, came a memory. Luna's face when his little robot had taken its first steps. Not polite interest, not pity, genuine delight. Wonder. The kind of joy that couldn't be faked, that lit up her whole face like someone had plugged her into a happiness generator. Different isn't wrong, he thought, and the thought felt like a small flame kindling in darkness. Different is just different. You're right, he said aloud, his voice small but growing steadier with each word. I am strange. I do ask uncomfortable questions. I do see the world differently than most. The voices paused, as if his agreement had disrupted their script, like they'd been expecting him to argue and didn't know what to do with acceptance. And you know what? Rascal continued, taking a step toward the chair that suddenly didn't look so scary. I'm glad. I'm glad I build things that make people smile. I'm glad I wonder about how the stars work. I'm glad I care more about understanding than about fitting in. This feels like character growth. Weird. But the loneliness, whispered the squirrel, its voice now uncertain, like it was running out of ammunition. The not belonging. Is real, Rascal acknowledged, settling into the chair at the center. The wood was warm beneath him, like it had been waiting for exactly this moment. But it's not the only real thing. Connection exists too. Friendship exists too. People who love you for exactly who you are. They exist too. The circle of shadow voices began to waver, their forms becoming translucent like they were running out of batteries. But what if they leave? Came one last desperate whisper. What if you're too much or not enough or... Then I'll be sad, Rascal said simply, and the simplicity of it felt revolutionary. And then I'll keep being myself anyway. Because hiding who I am doesn't prevent loneliness. It just makes it echo in an emptier space. Damn, when did I get wise? The voices dissolved like mist before sunrise, and the chair beneath him became solid stone, warm from some internal source that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. A path opened on the far side of the clearing, leading upward into golden light that looked suspiciously like hope. One down. How many more emotional boss fights does this mountain have? The pavilion dissolved around him like morning mist, leaving only a narrow stone ledge that curved around the mountainside. Here the wind sang different songs, carrying scents of distant places and the promise of mysteries yet to unfold. Rascal's steps felt lighter now, unburdened by the weight of pretense. For the first time in my life, he thought I'm climbing towards something rather than running from it. That's a W. The third trial, the workshop of judgment. The third trial manifested as a workshop that was everything his own could never be, pristine, organized, filled with tools that gleamed like jewels and materials that promised perfection. It looked like the Pinterest version of what his messy, chaotic, wonderful workshop aspired to be. Great, imposter syndrome made physical. At its center stood a workbench where a half-completed invention waited, something beautiful and complex that hurt to look at directly, as if it contained too much possibility for mortal eyes to process, like staring directly at the concept of genius. Standing around the workbench were figures in long robes, their faces hidden, but their presence radiating the weight of expertise and judgment. They watched him with the silence of those who had seen 1,000 young creators try and fail, who knew exactly what he was worth before he even tried. Build, came a voice like silk over steel. Show us what you can make when the eyes of mastery are upon you. Prove that your gifts are worthy of the mountain's notice. No pressure. Just prove your entire worth as a person through a single project. Totally normal. Rascal approached the workbench with trembling paws. The half-finished invention was clearly beyond his current skill. Its mechanisms operated on principles he could barely grasp, its tolerances requiring precision his tools couldn't achieve. But to refuse would be to admit failure before even attempting. "They're watching," whispered the voice of his deepest insecurity, the one that lived in his brain, like malware. "They know you're not good enough. They're waiting for you to embarrass yourself, to prove that forest-born raccoons have no business dreaming of real craftsmanship." His hands shook as he picked up the first component. Behind him, he could feel the weight of observation, the terrible pressure of being measured against standards he couldn't meet. The beautiful tools felt foreign in his grip, like wearing someone else's clothes. The pristine materials seemed to mock his humble workshops of salvaged scraps and patient improvisation. He tried to make a connection and fumbled it, tried to align a gear and watched it bind against improperly set bearings. Each mistake felt magnified under the watcher's gaze, each failure proof that he had presumed too much in climbing this high. "I can't do this," he thought, his vision blurring with tears of frustration. "I'm not skilled enough, not trained enough, not worthy enough to..." Then he stopped. Worthy enough for what, he asked himself. To impress strangers? To meet standards set by people who don't know my heart or understand my journey? Since when do I care about impressing people who've already decided I'm not enough? He set down the gleaming tools and reached for his own, wrapped in their humble cloth. They felt right in his hands, worn smooth by use, familiar as his own heartbeat. These were tools that had built things with love rather than perfection, that had solved problems through patience rather than brilliance. I don't need to be the best inventor in the world, he realized, and the realization felt like taking off shoes that had been too tight. I just need to be myself, honestly, completely, without apology. Instead of trying to complete the impossible device, Rascal began to build something simpler. Using his own tools and the materials at hand, he constructed a small mechanical flower, nothing groundbreaking, nothing that would win prizes or inspire awe. But it was his, made with care and genuine joy in the act of creation. This is who I am. This is what I do. Not because I have to prove anything, but because I love it. When the tiny brass petals opened to reveal a glowing center that pulsed like a heartbeat, the robed figures began to applaud, not with the approval of judges, but with the delight of those who recognized authentic expression when they saw it. "This is worthiness," came a new voice, warm as summer sunshine. Not perfection, but authenticity. Not flawless execution, but fearless creation. Not building what others expect, but building what your heart knows to be true. The workshop faded around him, but the small mechanical flower remained in his paws, proof that his gifts were enough, exactly as they were, more than enough. The workshop dissolved into a mountain meadow where wildflowers grew in impossible patterns, their colours more vivid than any earthly bloom. Rascal tucked the mechanical flower carefully into his satchel, feeling its gentle warmth pulse in rhythm with his own heartbeat. The air here was thin but sweet, and each breath seemed to carry whispers of encouragement from voices he couldn't quite identify but somehow recognized. Almost there, whatever there is. The fourth trial, the Garden of Letting Go. The final trial appeared as a garden of impossible beauty, where every flower, every tree, every blade of grass was a memory made manifest. Here grew the physical forms of everything Rascal had ever loved. The warm glow of evening fires with his forest family, the sound of Ramble's laughter echoing through sunny clearings, the peaceful certainty of being small and safe and cared for. Oh no. Not this. Anything but this. In the garden's centre grew a tree that bore no leaves, but instead carried countless glowing orbs, each one containing a moment from his childhood. He could see himself as a kit, building his first clumsy inventions, while Grandmother Possum watched with patient eyes. Racing through autumn leaves with Maple, both of them dizzy with the simple joy of being young and free from the weight of whatever was coming. "You cannot take these with you," came a voice like wind through autumn branches. The path ahead requires hands unencumbered by what was, heart unweighed by what cannot return. To reach the hollow tree, you must leave childhood in the garden where it belongs. The voice was gentle, but at the same time powerful, and Rascal felt his heart breaking with the truth of it. He could not remain the kit who built robots for the pure joy of watching gears turn. He could not keep the innocent wonder that saw only magic, where older eyes perceived something larger, something that called to him from the hollow tree's ancient heart. But if I let go of who I was, he thought desperately, how will I remember how to be happy? How will I remember that the world is beautiful? How will I remember that I matter? One by one, he touched the glowing orbs, feeling the memories they contained. Ramble's silly backwards words that made everything seem lighter. Luna's smile when she first trusted him with the story of her painful past. The quiet satisfaction of solving a mechanical puzzle while rain drummed softly on his workshop roof. You don't have to forget, he realized as understanding bloomed like dawn in his chest. You just have to carry them differently. Not as chains that hold you in place, but as treasures that inform who you're becoming. He began to walk through the garden, not taking the memories but blessing them, acknowledging their beauty, their importance, their role in shaping his heart. He touched the tree of childhood with gentle reverence, feeling the orbs pulse with warm light that seemed to absorb into his skin, becoming part of him in a way that transcended possession. "I'll always be the kit who built his first robot with wonder," he whispered to the garden. "That's not separate from whatever I'm becoming. It's the foundation for it. Growing up doesn't mean abandoning joy. It means learning to find joy in new ways, in larger purposes, in the responsibility to protect what's beautiful rather than simply enjoy it. Growing up means becoming someone who can carry the light instead of just basking in it." The garden began to fade, but not into emptiness, into integration. The memories didn't disappear. They settled into his bones, his breath, his heartbeat. He carried them forward not as burdens but as blessings, not as limitations but as strengths that would inform every choice he made in whatever larger world was waiting beyond the tree's hollow heart. "Childhood ends," came the voice. Softer now, but wonder is eternal. Love grows, joy deepens, the kit becomes something more. But that something remembers being a kit, and that remembering keeps the heart tender even as it grows strong. I can live with that. The garden's final light lingered around him like a blessing as the path rose steeply toward the tree's towering crown. Here, so close to his destination, the air itself seemed to hum with anticipation. Rascal could feel change approaching like weather, not the loss of who he was, but the revelation of who he had always been meant to become. The mysterious bump beneath his fur pulsed gently as if recognizing home was near, or maybe just saying, finally, we made it. The summit's gift. As the presence of the final test faded, the afternoon sun returned, painting the world in shades of gold and promise that looked like hope made visible. Rascal took his final steps toward the hollow tree. He was changed. Not diminished by his trials, but refined by them. Like gold, tested in fire and found to be pure. I did it. I actually did it. The tree loomed before him now, vast and welcoming, its hollow heart pulsing with gentle light that seemed to recognize him, to welcome him home to a place he had never been, but had always belonged. The trials are complete, came a whisper like wind through infinite branches. You have learned to embrace your difference, to value authenticity over acceptance, to trust your gifts regardless of others' opinions, to carry love forward even as its forms must change. You are ready for what waits within. Rascal paused at the threshold, looking back once at the path he had travelled. 4 trials behind him, each one teaching him that growing up didn't mean becoming someone else. It meant becoming more fully himself. The mountain had tested not his worthiness, but his willingness to be worthy of his own gifts, his own heart, his own irreplaceable place in whatever cosmic pattern was about to reveal itself. I belong here, he realized, and the realization felt like coming home. Not because I'm perfect, but because I'm perfectly myself. He touched the mysterious bump beneath his fur one final time, feeling it pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat, and with something larger. The heartbeat of mysteries waiting to unfold. Of truths too vast for his current understanding, but not too vast for his willing heart. Then he stepped forward into the golden light, no longer afraid of what he might discover about himself, but eager to meet whatever revelation waited in the tree's ancient depths. You belong here, whispered a voice that might have been the mountain, the tree, or the deepest wisdom of his own awakening heart. You have always belonged here, not because you were perfect, but because you were perfectly yourself, strange and wonderful and exactly what the world needed, exactly when it needed you. The real adventure, he realized as the hollow tree embraced him in its golden radiance, had never been about proving he was worthy of whatever magic lay ahead. It had been about discovering that he was already magical. Unique, irreplaceable, essential to some grand design in ways that only the hollow tree could reveal. The light enfolded him like coming home, and Rascal stepped forward to meet his destiny with a heart that had learned to trust itself, exactly as it was. Finally. Chapter 11. The Hollow Tree. The hollow tree stood waiting like it had been expecting him his whole life. It was massive, not just tall, but present in a way that made everything else feel like background props in someone else's movie. The bark looked like someone had pressed entire galaxies into it while it was still growing, swirling patterns that caught light and refused to let it go. Every few seconds, those patterns pulsed with a rhythm that felt familiar even though he'd never seen anything like it. The air around it hummed with bass so low he felt it in his chest rather than heard it. Like the universe was running some kind of background program, and this tree was the main server processing everything that mattered. Rascal stepped through the glowing entrance. Because of course there was a glowing entrance, his life had officially become that weird, and the world went quiet in a way that made his ears pop. Inside, physics had apparently decided to take a personal day. The space was impossibly huge, like walking into a room that was bigger on the inside because the outside was just a suggestion. The walls breathed with golden light, warm and slow, casting shadows that moved like they had their own agenda. Every pulse sent ripples through the air that tasted like honey mixed with starlight and felt like being hugged by pure comfort. The floor under his paws felt warm and solid, but somehow organic, like he was standing on the heart of something impossibly ancient and infinitely patient. Worn smooth by countless others who had stood in this exact spot, probably having the same "what even is this place and why does my brain feel like it's buffering" moment he was experiencing right now. At the center, floating like gravity, was just a polite suggestion, was a stone. It hovered above what looked like tree roots, twisted into a pedestal, their surface polished mirror-bright by time and reverence. The stone itself was confusing to look at, like trying to focus on water that was somehow also crystal, with silver veins running through it that pulsed in time with something deeper than his heartbeat. As he got closer, the bump at the back of his neck, his constant mystery companion that he'd basically given up trying to understand, started to warm up. Not hurting, just waking up. Like a phone finally getting signal after being in airplane mode his entire life. The stone was calling to him, but not in words. More like emotional surround sound, speaking directly to parts of his soul that had been holding their breath since the day he was born. "What are you?" he whispered, though he already knew on some level that bypassed rational thought entirely. This was the memory stone. The cosmic hard drive where the universe backed up everything too important to lose. The place where truth lived in its raw, unfiltered form. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from recognition so intense it felt like déjà vu times infinity. When his paw touched the stone's surface, warm like summer rocks, smooth like river stones, electric like touching a live wire made of pure understanding, reality decided to take a break. The world unraveled gently, like someone was adjusting the settings on existence itself. Light poured in from everywhere and nowhere, not blinding but revealing things he'd never known he couldn't see. White shot through with gold and silver, like sunrise reflected in deep water, having a dance party with moonbeams and winning. The light flowed around him, through him, carrying his awareness way beyond the boundaries of just Rascal from the forest, who builds robots and into spaces where memory lived without filters or perspective bias. Just truth in its purest, most overwhelming form. Then something appeared that made every category his forest-raised brain possessed for understanding beings completely obsolete. It wasn't exactly a something in any way he could categorize. This was consciousness given form, love made visible, wisdom crystallized into something that could communicate with a mortal mind without completely frying every circuit he possessed. The prime light. Its shape kept shifting like living starfire, sometimes suggesting a great stag with galaxies caught in its antlers, sometimes flowing like water that had learned to carry light in its currents, sometimes spreading like an eagle whose feathers were woven from aurora. But underneath all those familiar echoes was something infinitely more, ancient beyond measuring, patient beyond understanding, loving with a tenderness that made atoms weep with gratitude. When it spoke, its voice didn't just fill the air. It became the air. Deep as mountain roots, harmonic as the music between stars, ancient beyond time, but intimate as a lullaby whispered to someone you'd love across any distance. Child of the spark, we have waited for you. Each word hit him like a gentle avalanche of recognition, filling empty spaces in his heart he hadn't even known were there. This voice carried every sunrise that had ever broken over worlds beyond counting, every moment when someone chose love over fear, every guardian who had ever stood between chaos and the people they protected. I am the prime light, the voice continued, carrying authority that came not from power over others, but from service to something larger than individual existence. The memory of the beginning, the keeper of truths too sacred to lose. I've held the truth of who you are until your heart was ready to receive it without completely breaking under its terrible beauty. The truth of who I am, right? No pressure. Just my entire identity about to get the most intense software update in history. Rascal felt weightless, his breath caught not from fear, but from overwhelming recognition that he was in the presence of something so fundamentally good, so essentially loving, that every cell in his body resonated with harmonics of belonging he had never dared to hope existed. I've spent my whole life feeling like I didn't quite fit anywhere, like I was missing some essential piece of information about myself. And now, you didn't come from this forest, the Prime Light said, and its words carried infinite gentleness, like someone delivering life-changing news while knowing that transformation was the greatest gift they could give. You came from far beyond, from a realm of starlight and sorrow carried by those who would have given everything to keep you safe. I'm not from here. I'm not from here at all. That explains so much. The homesickness for places I've never been. The way I've always felt like I was waiting for something. The reason I've never quite fit into simple forest life. The space around them shimmered, and suddenly Rascal wasn't just hearing words, he was living them. The vision bloomed around him like the universe's most intense VR experience, more real than reality had ever managed to be. Okay, experiencing cosmic memories now, just going to roll with it, because apparently this is my life now. Space opened above him, not the peaceful darkness of forest nights, but space in absolute chaos. Reality itself straining under assault from forces trying to unmake connection itself, to reduce the infinite web of love that held everything together back to primordial void where nothing mattered and nothing lasted. Two beings of radiant power fought against the encroaching darkness, guardians wielding light like living weapons against a creeping blackness that devoured joy, hope, and the very memory of what it felt like to belong to something larger than loneliness. Then the scene shifted with heartbreaking clarity. Rascal saw his mother for the first time, radiant, fierce, beautiful beyond words. She moved with grace that made starlight seem clumsy, her form blazing with protective love so intense it created its own gravitational field. But she was wounded, her light flickering as the darkness pressed closer to the golden cradle they fought to protect. That's her. That's my mother. He watched in horror as she made her choice. With a cry that shattered dimensions, she threw herself between the cosmic darkness and her family, her light exploding outward in a barrier of pure love. The sacrifice bought them precious seconds, enough for his father to grab the cradle, enough for escape to become possible. But she was gone, consumed by the darkness she'd held back. His father's anguish echoed across galaxies as he clutched the cradle containing their son, alone now in the vast emptiness of space. Then the vision shifted again, showing him what they had protected. A cradle of golden metal that seemed to capture and hold starlight in its crystalline matrices. Technology so advanced it looked like magic, science so pure it had become love made manifest. Inside, nested in softness that might have been woven from moonbeams and parental tenderness, lay a tiny raccoon kit, himself. Even across years and dimensions, he could see the small spark pulsing in the infant's chest, cosmic energy already present, already connecting him to something vast and loving and eternal. The scene focused on his father now, alone and grieving but determined. Though the guardian's face blazed with light, too pure to look at directly, the love radiating from it was unmistakably paternal. Fierce, protective, carrying the weight of loss but refusing to let it destroy hope. "This is the Nova Spark," came his father's voice across impossible distances, carried by love so strong it bent reality around itself like gravity made of pure caring. It carries the energy of every guardian, every heart that chose service over selfishness. Let it guide you when all else fails, when darkness seems complete, when love appears to be the weakest force in creation. The guardian reached forward with ritual precision and gently, reverently pressed a glowing crystal into the back of the infant's neck. It sank through fur and skin without pain, settling like a star finding its perfect constellation, like hope planting itself in soil prepared across lifetimes for exactly this moment. Rascal felt the ancient memory, not as something that happened to someone else, but as the moment his true nature was sealed within him. The warmth at his neck, the tingling at crucial moments, the sense of connection he'd never been able to name, all crystallizing into understanding that hit like lightning made of pure recognition. The vision flickered as cosmic forces beyond individual control tore reality apart. Fire bloomed across impossible distances. Dimensions collapsed like houses of cards in a hurricane. Space-time groaned under pressures that threatened to reduce existence back to chaos. Through it all, one truth remained constant. Love refusing defeat, parental care transcending physics, the simple determination of one being to ensure his child survived even if he couldn't. His father, alone now and carrying the weight of his mate's sacrifice, cradled the cradle with hands that shook, not from weakness, but from the terrible weight of what love sometimes required of those who served its largest expressions. His name will be Rascal. He will find purpose in broken things and become a guardian like his parents, came the words that shaped destiny before he was old enough to understand what destiny meant. They fell through cosmic storm like seeds of light, ensuring that no matter where he landed, the essential pattern would remain intact. The vision showed desperate descent through dimensions, careful selection of a world where love still grew in forest clearings, the golden cradle settling into Whimsy Wood with the gentleness of hope finding its proper home. The last image, tiny paws reaching towards starlight that faded as morning came, as ordinary reality closed over cosmic truth like water healing around a stone dropped into its depths. "I understand now," he whispered, his voice carrying harmonics he'd never heard before. Cosmic depth woven with earthbound warmth, galactic strength married to local tenderness. I remember. Not everything, but enough. Enough to know why the stars called, why I could never settle into simple forest life, why my heart always ached for something I couldn't name, and why I've always felt like I was carrying the love of two parents, even though I never knew them. The prime light softened to something he could look at directly without his retinas filing a complaint. In its depths he glimpsed infinite compassion, accumulated tenderness of every guardian who'd ever chosen service, every heart discovering love's capacity to transcend every limitation. For a moment, Rascal could swear he saw faces in that light. His parents, together again somehow, watching him with pride so fierce it made his chest ache. His mother's radiant smile. His father's steady strength. Both of them nodding as if to say, "We knew you'd make it here. We knew you'd understand." Then the moment passed, but the warmth remained. "The understanding settles into your bones now," the prime light said with the satisfaction of seeds finally finding perfect soil. "You know yourself, not as forest creature who happened to develop cosmic awareness, but as bridge between worlds, living proof that earthbound love and universal consciousness strengthen each other when properly aligned. Bridge between worlds. That's what I am, not weird, just cosmic. I'm a cosmic bridge made of love and spare parts. But knowing is only the beginning. Now comes choosing what you'll do with knowledge that transforms everything. Oh, good. The part where I actually have to do something with this information instead of just having an existential crisis about it." The chamber pulsed with new rhythms, like the universe was getting ready to throw him a very intense birthday party. Above him, points of light began descending, not falling but dancing, spiraling like stars that had learned to celebrate their own luminosity. Are those presents? Am I about to get cosmic Christmas? Because I am so not prepared for cosmic Christmas. "You who build from what others discard," the prime light intoned with cosmic authority, made loving. "You who carry joy's echo through sorrow. You who prove broken things can be made more beautiful in their healing. Receive the 7 gifts of your becoming. Tools to let your bridge nature span whatever distances love requires. 7 gifts. This is like the most intense graduation ceremony in the history of existence. I didn't even know I was enrolled in Cosmic Guardian School. The lights circled in slowly turning constellation, each pulsing with its own distinct harmony. The nova spark at his neck responded, syncing with the celestial dance like it was finally hearing its favorite song. My cosmic inheritance is syncing with my cosmic gifts. This is the most extra thing that has ever happened to anyone ever. The feather of sky came first, drifting down with weightless grace that made gravity look like a suggestion. Long and iridescent, gleaming with inner fire that shifted through colors that didn't have earthly names because Earth hadn't been creative enough to invent them yet. As it touched his paw, lightness entered his bones. Not absence of substance, but presence of infinite possibility, a flying feather. Because apparently I needed the ability to defy gravity. Sure, why not? My life has officially become a fantasy novel. But as he held it, Rascal felt something shift. This wasn't just a tool. It was a gift from parents he'd never known, but who had known him completely. Every gift carried their love, their hopes, their absolute faith that he would use these tools to heal whatever brokenness he encountered. "It will lift what Earth cannot hold," the prime light explained, like it was the most natural thing in the world. When earthbound sorrow threatens to crush hope, when distance between what is and what could be seems unbridgeable, this reminds you that love has wings. Your mother's love. She lives in every moment when you choose to rise above despair. The dust of renewal followed. a thimble-sized vial containing what looked like concentrated essence of every spring that ever awakened winter-locked earth. Golden powder swirled with its own internal weather, carrying scents of apple blossoms and green shoots pushing through soil that had seemed completely barren. Renewal dust. For when hope needs a software update. I can work with that. A single breath may wake what despair tried to keep sleeping, the prime light explained with infinite patience. When hope appears dead, when love seems withdrawn, when dissolution convinces hearts that caring is futile, remember that renewal needs only the smallest opening, the tiniest crack in cynicism's armor. Sometimes the smallest things have the biggest impact. That's actually kind of beautiful. The wooden box descended with mystery that made shadows seem bright by comparison. Carved with a star that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, it emanated presence that made the air hold its breath in respectful silence. When it touched his palms, warmth flowed up, not fire's heat, but recognition's deeper warmth, like coming home after being lost for years. Mystery box. Classic. Always gotta have the mystery box. I'm just going to assume it's important and try not to open it until the universe tells me to. Within sleeps another's nova spark, the prime light said with undertones of prophecy mixed with promise. When darkness seems complete, when isolation threatens even the strongest heart, when the bridge builder doubts connection is possible, then this reveals its purpose. But not before greatest need, not until hope appears to have failed entirely. There's another nova spark? Someone else like me? That changes everything. I'm not the only one. I'm not alone in this. The living map unfurled as it descended, a scroll that looked like it was woven from light itself, surface shifting like an illuminated river carrying entire landscapes in its currents. Lines danced with their own life, constantly adjusting to show not where places were but where they were becoming, where they could be if consciousness chose love over fear, a GPS for the soul. That's actually brilliant. Way better than the broken compass I found in the edge places. It won't show where to go. The prime light explained as the map settled into his awareness like knowledge he'd always possessed but never accessed, but where you are in the vast web linking all hearts to all hearts. When lost, when the path seems unclear, when your bridge appears to lead nowhere, consult this. Remember you're never alone, never outside the pattern, never without purpose. Never alone. After feeling alone my whole life, that hits different. That hits really different. The black pouch appeared with mystery that made shadows bright by comparison. Soft as velvet, cool to touch, it seemed to contain depths with no bottom, spaces that existed outside the normal relationship between inner and outer. When he held it, he felt the strange sensation of carrying something simultaneously empty and infinitely full. A bag of holding. For cosmic purposes. Because of course. My inventory just got a serious upgrade. Some gifts arrived before their time. The prime light said, with the patient wisdom of someone who understood that consciousness had to grow into its possibilities, rather than being forced into premature expansion. This remains sealed until what you carry must be shared, when the bridge requires tools beyond single realm's boundaries. Trust its timing. It knows cosmic necessity's rhythm better than mortal understanding can follow. Trust the process, even when the process is literally cosmic mystery wrapped in a velvet pouch. I can do that. Probably. The rhythm stone descended with soundless music, felt harmony, melody that played in spaces between heartbeats where the soul's deepest truths lived. Carved in spiral shape that drew eyes inward toward depths holding existence's essential pattern, it pulsed with gentle warmth that synced immediately with his next nova spark. A stone that plays the universe's heartbeat. That's actually beautiful. Like having the cosmic soundtrack on permanent loop. Wear it close, the prime light instructed as the stone settled against his chest, its cord woven from materials that felt like crystallized moonbeams. When all scatters, when chaos threatens order, when connection's fabric seems unraveling. This reminds you of the song Beneath Sorrow, the pattern persisting through apparent dissolution, the rhythm connecting every heart to the cosmic pulse sustaining all existence. When everything falls apart, remember the music. I can do that. Music makes everything better anyway. Finally, the memory stone itself began to condense, its vast presence shrinking into holdable form. As it settled in his palms, obsidian dark but veined with silver stars that pulsed like captured constellations, he felt the weight of all remembrance, all truths consciousness ever needed to preserve across the gap between forgetting and recognition. The cosmic hard drive is mine now. No pressure, just carrying the entire emotional history of the universe in my pocket. When the time comes, the prime light said with gentle finality, it will open what's been sealed. Speak what's been silenced, show what's been hidden. The bridge between worlds requires bridges between times, between what was and what could be, between memory and hope, between the love that shaped you and the love you'll become. I'm carrying the past and the future in my backpack. That's a lot of responsibility for someone who was fixing broken music boxes this morning. As the 7 gifts settled, some in the golden satchel that materialized to contain them, others taking their positions in his awareness, like stars finding their constellations, Rascal felt the magnitude settling into his bones like knowledge reshaping him from the inside out. He looked down at his paws, the same paws that had tinkered with broken music boxes and worried over robot joints. But they felt different now. They carried the genetic memory of builders who worked with starlight, of guardians who crafted hope from the raw materials of love itself. This is my life now. Cosmic guardian, bridge between worlds, interdimensional repair technician, no going back to simple forest life. But instead of being crushed by cosmic responsibility's weight, he felt expanded, not burdened, but blessed. Not diminished by obligation, but enhanced by purpose that connected his individual gifts to patterns larger and more beautiful than he'd ever dared imagine. The prime light began fading, not departing, but settling into the chamber's golden luminescence, becoming part of the space rather than separate from it. But its voice remained, warm as summer starlight, gentle as sleeping children's breath, strong as love that crossed cosmic distances to ensure his safety. You are not alone, came final words, settling like a benediction that would echo through every future challenge. You never were. The bridge you're becoming connects not just different realms, but different forms of love, specific care tending individual hurts, and universal compassion, maintaining harmony across infinite scales. Walk knowing every step strengthens the web, sustaining all existence. Every choice to love rather than fear adds light to the constellation, guiding all who serve. Every choice to love rather than fear. That's the whole thing, isn't it? That's what all of this comes down to. The chamber shifted around him, golden light revealing itself as ordinary sunlight streaming through the entrance to what was, after all, simply a hollow tree in a beloved forest. But simplicity was transformed now, made sacred by understanding how cosmic and intimate could coexist without contradiction. It's still just a tree, but also the most important place in the universe. Both things can be true. That's the kind of paradox I can live with. As Rascal rose, mythic gifts secure in their satchel and memory stone warm in his paw, he felt profound satisfaction of purpose, not just discovered but accepted. He was still himself, still the young raccoon who loved his forest home, who found joy in mending broken things, who treasured Earth's simple pleasures and worried about his robot taking more than 12 steps. But he was also more now. Bridge builder, keeper of cosmic inheritance. Living proof that love could transcend every limitation while preserving everything that made it specifically, personally, irreplaceably precious. I'm still me. Just the cosmic version of me, with interdimensional responsibilities and a very impressive toolkit. He paused at the threshold of the tree, looking back once at the space where he'd met the prime light, where he'd seen his parents' sacrifice, where he'd learned who he really was. The golden light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, like a promise that this place would always be here when he needed to remember. Thank you, he whispered to the light, to his parents, to the universe that had conspired to bring him safely home to this moment of understanding. I won't let you down. The light pulsed once more, and in that pulse he felt their answer. You never could. He stepped out into afternoon sunlight that seemed different now, not changed in essential nature, but perceived by eyes that had learned to see sacred woven through ordinary, cosmic expressed in local, eternal, present in immediate. The forest stretched exactly as it always had, but he knew now that its familiar paths connected to trails spanning galaxies, its beloved creatures, part of communities, including beings across multiple dimensions. His home simultaneously, the most local and most universal place in existence. He thought of Maple, probably bouncing around somewhere waiting to hear about his adventure. Of his robot, patiently waiting for tomorrow's attempt at 13 steps. Of all the small, precious things that made up his daily life. Things that felt even more precious now that he understood how much love had gone into preserving his ability to care about them. Home, but also the center of everything. The bridge between here and everywhere else. Rascal closed the satchel with fingers that no longer trembled. He stood beneath the hollow tree, no longer the same young raccoon who'd approached hours ago, but not someone else either. Himself, revealed and enhanced and forever changed by understanding that some bridges exist not to be crossed but to be embodied. I am the bridge. That's not a burden. It's a gift. It's the most beautiful gift anyone could ask for. He was Rascal. He was the son of guardians. He was the bridge between worlds made manifest. He was ready to discover what love could accomplish when it learned to transcend every limitation, while honoring everything that made connection beautiful. Time to save some worlds. No big deal. Just another Tuesday in the life of an interdimensional raccoon. The adventure was just beginning, but now he knew it wasn't his adventure alone. It was the eternal story of consciousness learning to love without limits, told through the specific voice of one small being who'd learned to carry starlight in his heart while keeping his paws firmly planted in home soil. Not alone. Never alone, even when it feels like the weight of the universe is on my shoulders. And somewhere far above, stars pulsed with recognition, ancient lights acknowledging a new light, cosmic guardians welcoming one who would prove the bridge between worlds wasn't something to be built from outside, but something to be recognized within, where earthbound love and universal consciousness had always been waiting to discover they were the same truth expressed in perfect harmony. As he walked back toward home, Rascal carried with him not just cosmic gifts and universal purpose, but something even more precious, the absolute certainty that he was loved. Had always been loved, would always be loved, by parents who gave everything to save him, by a forest family who chose him, by a universe that had been waiting patiently for him to become exactly who he was meant to be. The stars are welcoming me home. Both homes, earth and sky. That's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful.